Once again, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'd like to welcome everybody who's attending today's stream. I'm hoping to have a very interactive stream as always. Let me remind you that we are live on Brother Yusuf's channel, the South African Debate Initiative. So please go and subscribe to Brother Yusuf's YouTube channel. That'll be much appreciated. Also, we are live, of course, on my channel, CovFF. And we are live on my channel on Rumble as Abu Shuaib. So please, if you got Rumble, please go over to Rumble and subscribe to my channel. First of all, this show, of course, it's very hard hitting. It sometimes can be quite emotional. But brothers and sisters, we try to relay facts to you, not hearsay. Over the last couple of months or possibly a year now, every time Brother Yusuf has discussed with somebody, he's brought evidences from non-biased sources. So we have to bear that in mind. The link I've already posted. So if there's anybody throughout this monologue who's willing to come on and defend the savagery of the Israeli occupation there in Gaza and of course the West Bank, you are always welcome to come on. And we've had some, I wouldn't say nut jobs, but we've had some people with some differing thought processes coming on and challenging Brother Yusuf. I'm putting that quite politely. But nevertheless, even just today, over 19 Palestinians have been killed, 72 have been injured over the last 24 hours. Also, 3 aid workers have been killed. And these aid workers are from the World Central Kitchen. The World Central Kitchen is a profitable organization, and even aid workers are not being spared by the savagery of the Israeli army. Also, journalists are being targeted, surgeons are being targeted, any type of professional is being targeted by this terrible savagery, this just barbaric army. That they use the term that the Israeli army is the most as they term that, the most decent army in the world. We let individuals know before we actually blow up your building. It's just just remarkable how they've been getting away over the year with this savagery, and people from around the world are turning a blind eye. The latest figures from the ground in Gaza, over nearly 44,500 Palestinians have been killed so far. I think that's a generous number, but I do feel that it's going to be a lot more than that. Of course, joining me is a co-host and also a good colleague of mine, Brother Yusuf. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Brother Yusuf. Nice to see you.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's great to see you. Greetings of peace. And as we've called the stream, South Coast stands up and condemns Israel. Why South Coast? Is because I live on the South Coast. It's an area called the South Coast, and it's a wide array of land from a place known as Heberden, Scottsboro, right up to a place called Port Edward, which covers the south coast, the southernmost coast of KwaZulu-Natal. And then, of course, you've got the Eastern Cape, which is basically on our border. I'm not in Durban. I'm about 1.5 hours from Durban, which is the main city center in KwaZulu-Natal. I don't stay there. So I say South Coast condemns because symbolically, I am from the south coast of the southernmost region. I wasn't born here. And yesterday we had, remarkably, when you had called me for the stream that you had yesterday, I had met and seen an individual, a remarkable photojournalist, a chap called Hamza Shalan, who's a photojournalist from Gaza, and he's documented and record of the past year gruesome, brutal realities of this genocide. And even before the genocide commenced in October, the reality of the occupation. His father's in a wheelchair. And, sometimes I have the belief, as the Chinese would once say, that one picture is worth 10,000 words. An image is far more powerful than an academic argument. And I believe it, particularly with this particular conflict. You can construct how much of reasoning, how much of rationale, how much of argumentation to try and explain the position in a logical way, which we've attempted over the past several months. And it's difficult to get into the brain skulls of a lot of these numbskulls that we've basically encountered. And sometimes the rawness, the brutality, the horror of an image does far more in exposing the reality of the genocide that's basically taking place than anything else. So he's a photojournalist. I got to meet him. We exchanged details. He's got a Hamza Shalan, Hamza Chalan. He informed me about his Instagram page. I'm not on Instagram on social media, but he's got about 250,000 followers on Instagram. And he exchanged his personal contact details, his email addresses, and he's given an undertaking that he will be willing to come at some point in time on our platform. I believe he will be heading back to Gaza. I don't know how he will be doing that. Somehow or the other, he managed to come out of Gaza. It's difficult to get out of Gaza, but he's done a remarkable job. It's phenomenal that they haven't killed him yet. He may be going back, and inshallah, when he gets back, or possibly in the next couple of weeks, we hope to have him again. I'm reaching out to him formally and invite him to this program, and probably he's going to share us never before seen images, which even outlets like Al Jazeera and other mainstream outlets on the ground do not obviously show or illustrate, by virtue of the fact that they are subject to some degree of censorship in terms of what they can and cannot show. So hopefully to have him there. It's interesting that you mentioned, and starting off with the stream, the killing of the World Central Kitchen, Mohammed. If you recall, a couple of months back, this was in I think March, February, we can't even recall. You remember there was an aid convoy from the World Central Kitchen, and the World Central Kitchen gave the coordinates to the Israeli Defense Force. They instructed them where they are going to go, how they're going to do, what are they going to deliver. And the Israeli army targeted and murdered them one after the other. And they had no justification. In the end, they said it's a mistake. Well, I've just shared a screen now. If you can share the screenshot, remarkably, and this is the canard that is usually played. Look at it, what it says here. It says here, Israeli army confirms World Central Aid Kitchen worker killed. November 30th, 2024. And this is what it says here. The Israeli military confirmed that a Palestinian employee of the U.S. charity World Central Kitchen, that's today, was killed Saturday, today, after Gaza rescuers announced the deaths of 3 aid workers following an Israeli strike. And then what does it say here below that? Can you imagine the gall and the audacity? The army said in a statement that the worker was a terrorist who infiltrated Israel and took part in the murderous 7th of October massacre in Kibbutz Nizor and worked for the WCK organization. The charity has yet to comment on the Gaza Civil Defense Agency's earlier statement that 3 World Central Kitchen workers were killed in the strike. Can you see the gall? Can you see the brutality? So number one, they're confirming that this was a targeted strike. Number two, they're justifying why it was a targeted strike by stating that he's a terrorist. So imagine this audacity that if you, Brother Muhammad, were to go to Gaza and you were to go on a relief aid mission, you're not involved in any terrorist activity, and clearly you are not. You're a citizen of the United Kingdom. I'm not involved with any terrorist activity in inverted commas, even with the organizations who we don't deem terrorists, like Hamas or Hezbollah for that matter. But they kill us. And then they will say that basically we are terrorists. Can you see the audacity? So this is the easiest way and the easiest excuse to get away with what they've got. Initially in January, February, I can't even remember when, because there's so many incidents happen, when the World Central Kitchen were targeted the 3 separate convoys.
That was in April 2000.
April, yeah, it was April. If you see, we discussed that at length in one of the streams. It was April. And there were 3 separate convoys. And then the response was that this was a mistake. But then the question was asked, how can it be a mistake when the convoy actually gave the coordinates to the Israeli Defense Force prior to delivering the aid? They then said they were going to investigate. They investigated. They said it's a mistake. Now you've got another situation where the World Central Kitchen aid worker is killed. And now they've confirmed that it's a targeted killing. What's their response? He's a terrorist. So you can label anybody a terrorist, and that basically that creates this kind of impunity in terms of the murder that you wish to engage in, the impunity in relation to the murder. And this is basically all that Israel stands for. It is shameless, it is disgusting, it has no sense of morality, nothing whatsoever. The World Central Kitchen now was the very first time in this genocide when the entire world woke up and now showed some degree of outrage because, of course, these were foreign workers. One was an Australian, one was a UK worker. Now you've got a situation that this World Central Kitchen worker that was killed on Saturday is a Palestinian. And what's the response? He's a terrorist. So we don't believe the lies that these individuals give. You can't get beyond the kind of Israeli Haspara, but the Haspara that they are promoting, the propaganda that they are promoting, it's just simply not working. It's not working at all. And so this is the excuse that we've always made up. Is that number one, they say it's a mistake. Number two, they say that it's collateral damage. Or number three, they say that this particular person is a terrorist. So whichever way you look at it, they have an excuse. You can never fault them. It's like, Ahmed Didat, he did a lecture many years ago, and I'm talking about in the 1980s, and it's available online. And he even wrote a book called Arabs and Israel, Conflict and Conciliation, subsequently made into a book, Arabs and Israel, War or Peace. The original title of that book and the lecture and debate that he was engaged in was called The Pros and Cons of Israel. And what had happened, and for those, this is just basically some sort of trivia that I'd like to give those out there. The topic of the book, Arabs and Israel, Conflict and Conciliation, was not a topic chosen by Ahmed Didat. It was a topic foisted on him by the Israeli ambassador, Dr. E. Lotham, when he had engaged in a debate with Ahmed Didat in 1982 during the Lebanon invasion at the University of Natal back then. The moderator of the debate was a professor of law, Professor David McQuaid Mason. I'm not so sure if he's alive now. He lectured me years later, of course. But when Didat suggested the topic pros and cons of Israel, the Jewish side, the Jewish lobby, was not happy with the topic. So they suggested the alternative. They suggested conflict and conciliation. And in his book, Didat talks about this topic and says that, look, whichever way you look at it, you lose. If you choose conflict, Arabs and Israel conflict, the Jews would want to think that, look, they are the peace lovers. They are individuals who are engaged in peace. Why would you want to choose conflict? And if you choose conciliation, then they will come with the other alternative to say that, look, well, if you're choosing conciliation, why are you picking up stones and throwing it at us? Why are you engaging in Intifada? This was in 87, 88, 89, the book came out. Why are you engaging in Intifada? So whichever way you look at it, you lost and the Jews won in terms of this verbal gymnastics that they were engaged in. And so based on that, the topic Arabs and Israel, Conflict and Conciliation, stuck to the book, which is now popularly known and widely available. But the original title of the book and the original titles of his lectures were The Pros and Cons of Israel, then subsequently changed and amended to Arabs and Israel, Conflict and Conciliation. The reason I'm bringing this up is because of the ingenuity of the Jewish nation and the Israeli people in terms of engaging in these kind of verbal gymnastics and intellectual mumbo-jumbo in Israeli Haspara to prove their particular point. Now, of course, we see that it's falling apart because the entire global world opinion has shifted and changed against the traditionalist propaganda that they normally got away with. Now we can call them out. But I'm saying that on a smaller level, that is just one example in terms of how they basically manipulated the situation in relation to what we see. So before I move on, I just want to share this. I have before us a particular, let me just try and share the screen. This is the Human Rights Watch report in November 2024, 14th of November, just a couple of, I think, 2 weeks ago. which deals with the mass forced displacement and widespread destruction. If you can share this on the screen. If you look at this here, basically it goes through the entire, it gives you a summary. Israeli authorities have caused mass deliberate forced displacement and are responsible for war crimes and crimes against humanity. This has already been declared. There's no plausible imperative military reason to justify the mass displacement, and governments should adopt targeted sanctions and other measures and halt weapons sales to Israel. The International Criminal Prosecutor should investigate Israel's forced displacement and prevention of the right to return as a crime against humanity. And they make reference to this 158-page report called Hopeless, Starving and Besieged, Israel's Forced Displacement of Palestinians in Gaza. This is a report. For those of you who have access to it, this is the report. If you go right up here, I don't know if I've opened it. Let me just try and see if I can stop sharing and then reshare this screen here. I just want you to see this so people can, in their spare time, we can't go through this entire, but download this entire page. This is the report. It's a 154-page report. You can see it on the screen now. Let me try and cancel that. I just want to go and increase the size. Here we are. So if you've got the StreamYard Studio, those who are watching, this is the actual report on StreamYard. It's from the Human Rights Watch. It's published on November 14th. It's 154 pages, and it goes into a laborious, a lengthy discussion on the forced displacement of Palestinians in Gaza. It talks about different individuals. It gives facts and figures. According to the United Nations, 1.9 million people were displaced in Gaza as of October 2024 out of a population of 2.2 million. This report examines the Israeli authorities' conduct, which has led to this extraordinarily high level of displacement, and finds these actions amount to forced displacement, which is ethnic cleansing. Given the evidence strongly indicates that multiple acts of forced displacement were carried out with intent, it amounts to war crimes. This is not a biased report by Muslims. This is a Human Rights Watch. This report further finds that the Israeli army government's acts of forced displacement are widespread and systematic. Statements by senior officials, and this is the point, command responsibility. The point we made last week with that ludicrous character, Matt Paulson, who's a Facebook friend. I was repeatedly pointing out the idea of command responsibility, which shows a level of intent, particularly when it comes to shooting kids in the head, murdering them, and of course engaging in rape. He tried to present the idea at some point that these were rogue soldiers engaging in a rogue form of action, which had nothing to do with the Israeli official or command responsibility. Command responsibility means there's authority from the command to say, this is official policy, this is what we're going to do. Now, he made the point, what an idiot. Which Israeli official tells Israeli soldiers to shoot children in the head? Therefore, the Israeli soldiers are acting on their own. But what an idiot, because the Israeli army and the Israeli government and the Israeli officials and Israeli members of the Knesset have made the point that you are to go out and kill all and murder all. So if you were to blow them up from the sky or shoot them in the head, the point is that the order is coming from the top to murder them. So I don't see the logic behind the question in the first place. This is another issue where the forced displacement that is happening, it shows, and the Human Rights Watch report confirms, that these emanate from senior officials. Senior officials with command responsibility shows that forced displacement is intentional and forms part of Israeli state policy and therefore amounts to a crime against humanity. Israel's actions appear to also meet the definition of ethnic cleansing. And this is an image of a little boy that is suffering and sustained. Let's play this for a short while and have a look at this particular thing. Expand this.
تم استهدافنا الآن من الطيران. نحن مع طواقم الهلال الأحمر الله يرحمه فراس. سلامات فراس. احنا بخير. تقلقوش.
This is the story of two Palestinian residents, Ghassan and Sarah, who sought to escape the violence in Gaza, but were trapped in the hostilities and their lives irreversibly changed.
So I'm just going to make my Maghrib and then I'm going to come back in a couple of minutes. But in the meantime, Brother Muhammad, if I can just show this from Human Rights Watch report, this particular aspect for a few minutes, and then I'll be back shortly.
Since the start of the hostilities, Ghassan has kept a video diary documenting his daily life.
أيام جباليا بالذات احنا معزولين كليا عن العالم. قطعوا النت وقطعوا كل شيء.
Israel has enforced a tight blockade of Gaza. This has led to a humanitarian catastrophe and an evacuation system that has unashamedly failed to keep civilians in Gaza safe.
في عندنا هنا الوقت مرام المناشير. وقت مرام المناشير علينا بالخلاء. فهم؟ هيو واضح. هيو توجهوا هذا الفخ اللي كان أنا بحكي عنه.
For the displacement of individuals to be lawful, the following conditions are among those that must be met. Ensure people are moved safely, not separated from their families, and have access to food, water, sanitation, and healthcare. The evacuation should be temporary, and displaced people should be free and able to return to their homes as soon as possible after the hostilities end in that area. Israel's military has displaced 90% of the Gaza population, around 1.9 million people. This map shows the evacuation order on October 13, 2023, directing civilians towards supposed safe zones. Human Rights Watch investigated the Israeli authorities' policies and conduct. We found that repeated evacuations, mass destruction, and failure to provide safe passage or access to food, shelter, or medical care make the displacement unlawful. The level of intent and evidence of a state policy of forced displacement means these are war crimes and crimes against humanity.
في الوقت هذا مع يعني حالة الفوضى اللي صارت، الشارع اللي أنا ماشي فيه صار فيه ضرب 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 في كل مكان الضرب. احنا يا جماعة مهجرين في الشوارع في مخيم جباليا، ما حدش بيعرف عنا ولا قادرين نوصل لأي وسيلة اتصال. لقينا سيارة في الشارع وقعدنا فيها أنا وهشام، مش عارفين وين نروح ليش نسوي هذه السيارة لناس، واحنا فتحناها وقعدنا فيها، واللي بلاقي هذا الجوال إذا احنا كنا مفارقين الحياة ويروي هذه الرواية ويبث هذه الفيديوهات. فجأة الدنيا ضوء هيك، انت داخل الحدث او داخل بؤرة الانفجار تشعرش بشيء، تشوف نفسك هل انت يعني فاقد اجزاء، انت عايش كذا. انا يا جماعة الليلة قصفوا، لسه احنا في ساعات الفجر الاولى، وانا كنت في السيارة هذه والصابت امسك السلام هذا صاروخ شو مسوي ام استهداف البريد، وانا كنت قاعد في السيارة هذه. السيارة اللي احنا كنا فيها تلقت عنا الضرب، يعني هي اخذت عنا الهواية السيارة. فعلا اخذنا قرار انه انا لازم اخلي الشمال على الاقل. فرابطك في المخيم حياتك كاملة. فهو اشبه زي ما قالوا اشبه بطلوع الروح النزوح. كله بهاجر، كله الناس مضرب. شد المخيم وطالع على رفح بعد القصف. على الكارة مش لاقيين سيارات، مرة أحبار.
The Salah al-Din Road is the main highway that runs north-south through the Gaza Strip. Israeli evacuation orders started on October 13, 2023, running until January 4, 2024. They instructed people to flee using this road and assured safe passage. Later evacuation orders told people to use a different route. Investigations by Human Rights Watch through interviews, satellite imagery, photos and videos demonstrate that this road was rarely, if ever, safe.
حقيقة أنت بمر عليك لحظات تشعر أنت وحيد في هذا الكوكب. كيف؟ يومها كان انقطاع كامل عن شمال غزة للكهرباء والمي. حتى الاحتلال صرح بهذا انه احنا حنقطع المي والكهرب وكمان الاتصالات والانترنت. اول ما وصلت رفح، وانا بحكي عنها، رفح عباره عن فخ، مصطلحنا ملطش. احنا كنا عايشين في بيت مكون من 3 طوابق، كان لاجئ له ونازح فيه من برضه من عائلتي ومن اقاربي لهذا البيت ما يعادل 200 شخص. انت متخيل انا كنت والله بنام في مكان على حدود جسمي، اذا بتحرك هيك بخبط في شيء او بتحرك هيك بخبط في شيء. طبعا تحت القصف، تحت الدمار، تحت قله الامكانيات. ومعي حمود. ماشي حمود، كيف الوضع؟ تخاف من القصف؟ ايش نفسك؟ تخلص الحرب؟ وين نروح؟ نروح على دارنا؟ تعال بلال. ايش يا بلال؟ ليش نفسك؟ نرجع على الدار؟ نشرب وناكل. يلا ان شاء الله بتخلص الحرب بنرجع على الدار. ماشي. رفح حكوا عنها آمنة، رفح كانوا عنها مناطق المساعدات. وقتاش دخلت المساعدات الغزالية؟ أنا قعدت تقريبا مدة طويلة ما يعادل شهر، بقف من الساعة 7 الصبح ل 2 الظهر عشان أحصل على كم من رغيف خبز شرية. وصار في حوار على أنهم بدهم يجتاحوا رفح. أنا ساكن في البرازيل على الحدود. هذه كلها المزيج هذا من الأخبار، من الحالة الكبيرة، طولنا فصار لازم نستقل. فموضوع انك كثير بضربوا كانوا شقق وبيوت، فكان الخيار انك انت تروح تعمل خيمة بين الخيام كنازح.
Under the laws of war, Israel, as the occupying power, is only permitted to temporarily evacuate people under its control for specific reasons. Israel must allow all the displaced to return once hostilities end. Instead, most of housing and civilian infrastructure has been destroyed, so that much of Gaza is uninhabitable. Rather than meet its obligations to put in place basic protections to ensure access to food, water, sanitation, and healthcare, Israel has taken steps to cut them off.
بلشت الناس تطلع من المنطقة تنسحب. كانت مليانة، فيش مساحة انك تشوف الرمل من الخيم. جينا طبعا فيش مكان آمن في كل غزة. في قصف عندنا، مش أمان حقيقة. ولا مرة من يوم ما غادرت الشمال أنا شعرت بالأمان. لا بتنام ولا بالك بقى صافي، ذهنك بقى صافي.
On December 1st, 2023, the Israeli military released an interactive map dividing Gaza into 620 numbered blocks and continued to post and distribute evacuation orders referencing this block system. On December 7th, 2023, Sarah's family home in Khan Yunis was not in a block slated for evacuation. Human Rights Watch interviewed Sarah and analysed satellite imagery, video and photographs taken from that day. The information gathered indicates that the Israeli military knew or should have known that civilians were living in this block.
The Israelis had renamed our area by blocks, so everyone could keep track of where there could be strikes. We were living in Block G, number 108. At around 4 p.m., I was coming home from work. What I saw as I approached was a massacre. It was hectic, everyone was screaming, and all I could see was fire and destruction. I was scared because my kids were home and my sisters were taking refuge at my house, so we had about 20 people living in our apartment on the 3rd floor. Thank God my family in the apartment were okay. It was the building just next to us that had been hit. There was so much damage to the building I couldn't enter. I could see bodies, people under the rubble. Many people died that day. Seeing all of this has affected my kids hugely. It changed us all.
By analysing online evacuation orders and photographs of airdrop leaflets posted online, Human Rights Watch established that Block 108 was not designated for evacuation until 6.5 weeks after this strike.
Can you imagine that? So this is what they're saying, the leaflets. So 6.5 weeks after they destroyed it, they identified or basically attempt to go back to say, yes, it was listed for evacuation. Therefore, those who died were instructed to leave. But in actual fact, it was not.
Human Rights Watch identified at least 6 additional strikes in this block before the attack on Sarah's relative's home, which also damaged hers on December 7, 2023. Just dozens of meters from that attack, 2 additional strikes were carried out in the same time frame. Analysis of satellite imagery shows that the attack on Sarah's relative's home was not an isolated incident. The evacuation system failed to keep people safe. Evacuation orders were inconsistent, inaccurate, and frequently not communicated to civilians at all, or with enough time to allow evacuations. The sheer number of Palestinian civilians forced from their home demonstrates that displacement in Gaza is widespread. It is also systematic and intentional and unlawful, forming part of Israeli state policy. This amounts to a crime against humanity. Israel should stop collectively punishing civilians in Gaza. Governments should publicly condemn Israel's forced displacement of the civilian population as a war crime and crime against humanity, and suspend military assistance and arms sales to Israel.
In previous wars, they did target specific places, but we would know in advance and be given warning. This war is completely different. There is nowhere safe for us to go.
خايف جدا من نزوح تاني انا خايف من انه الشتاء يجي واحنا الموضوع مش مخلص لانه كل هذا اللي انت شايفه هان انا في الشتاء هان بقدرش اقعد هان هذا شعور الفقدان الفقدان انك تفقد حدا هذا شعور مش اي شعور بتمنى الوقت اللي ارجع فيه احط راسي على مخده في بيت يكون الي حر انا فيه.
I wanted to play that because I think it's important that people shouldn't just it's not my voice or how much I talk, that let people see the reality. And this is an independent outlet called Human Rights Watch. It's a 154-page document. Those out there, download this. We're giving you information to download. It deals with everything. Israel has not evacuated Palestinian securities for their security as have not been secured during evacuations or arrival at designated safe zones. There are no safe zones. Nor has Israel convincingly claimed that it had a military imperative by forcing most Palestinian civilians from their homes. In other words, for you to legitimately get people out of their houses in events of war, the laws of war, you have to show a military imperative in terms of law, in terms of the laws of war, the conduct of war, for people to leave. They've shown none. They've shown absolutely none. And the report goes on to say, even if Israel was able to demonstrate such an imperative, its failure to ensure the security and the guarantee of protection of displaced persons as they fled and in the places to which they were displaced would still render the displacement unlawful. The evacuation system failed to keep the place safe and instead often served only to spread fear and anxiety. Evacuation orders were inconsistent. Look at what they say, because they always talk about how humane this army is. Evacuation orders were inconsistent, inaccurate, and frequently not communicated to civilians with enough time to allow evacuations or at all. And how do they communicate? How do you communicate via phone when your telecommunication system is totally destroyed? How? The evacuation orders also fail to take into account the needs of people with disabilities, many of whom are unable to leave without assistance. Designated evacuation routes and safe zones were repeatedly attacked by the military. So you tell people to evacuate. You then send them to what you claim to be a safe zone, and then you bomb the safe zone and you blow them up. What are you talking about? Rather than meet its obligations to put in place basic safeguards to ensure food, water, sanitation, and healthcare, Israel has taken steps to cut them off or severely restrict humanitarian aid. Further, Israel is under an obligation to facilitate the return of displaced persons to their homes in areas where hostilities have ceased, but it has instead rendered large parts of Gaza uninhabitable. Where do people go back to? There's not a single school left. There's not a single university left. There's not a single mosque left. There's no religion, no religious, no cultural institutions, no churches left. Nothing. Where do people go back to? Where on earth do people go back to? So this report goes into detail. I mean, it's a lengthy report, 154 pages on the aspect of ethnic cleansing. And it goes into, for example, some of the provisions that the ICJ order basically enacted in January. It deals with the fact that Israel has destroyed the majority of Gaza's water, sanitation, communications, energy, transport. So in other words, it discusses this and then it goes into details. They have systematically raised orchards, fields, and greenhouses. So all those people out there, you know, the so-called, what they call them, not Greenpeace, this environmental, yes. And people talking about global warming and all of that. You know, all those hypocrites out there in the United States talking about global warming and the climate and environment. They've destroyed the environment. So much civilian infrastructure has been destroyed that much of Gaza, and it's inconsistent with Israel's obligation to ensure that civilians can return to affected area. It largely took place after Israel officials specifically stated that damage, not accuracy, was a purpose of bombardment. This is the World Bank. The World Bank stated, and this is January 2024. January. We're now in December 2024. The World Bank has estimated that January 2024, over 60% of residential buildings and over 80% of commercial facilities have been damaged or destroyed in Gaza. Everything is gone now. Everything in the north is gone. Everything in Rafah is gone. Go and see the maps. They've obliterated it. Obliterated it. By August 2024, over 93% of Gaza schools, hospitals have been either destroyed or damaged. The United Nations Environment Programme has noted unprecedented impacts of the war on the environment, exposing the community to growing soil, water, air pollution, risks of irreversible damage to its natural ecosystem. I mean, even the sewage facilities, forget there's no more sewage facilities. What does that mean? You literally have sewage out there. Literally have sewage out there on the ground. And many reports state this will take something like 80 years. 80 years. The UN Agency for Development has estimated it will cost $40 to $50 billion to rebuild Gaza and require an effort on a scale the world has not seen since World War II. Imagine that, people. Imagine that. Who's going to build it up? Not Israel. They're destroying it. You think Israel wants to build it up? They're dumping this on what they believe to be the Palestinians. Israel has also carried out controlled demolitions, destructions, forcibly displacing Palestinians. And go through this report. Shocking. I've been through a significant part of this. forced displacement as a crime against humanity. I mean, we're seeing crimes, ethnic cleansing before our very eyes. Read this report, publish it, make copies, email it to others. It's got many stories, many stories. This is one story I'm just picking up randomly. A 48-year-old man from the Al Zaytun neighborhood described how a building he estimated was 1 meter and a few meters was hit in the morning. Anas did not receive a warning, which took place before October 13. This is as early as October 13. He said he had to pull himself and several of his children from the rubble, and he's disabled. There was so much dust, I didn't know what was happening. I couldn't see much because of the dust. I had to clear myself from the rubble. I started pulling my kids from the rubble. 2 of Anas's children had gone to the market that morning to buy sweets. I mean, we've got the largest number of dismembered children in the world today in Gaza. Children without hands, no arms, no legs, nothing. The UN Special Rapporteur gives an estimate out of the 1.9 million as of October, look at the date, October 13th, 2023, 423,000 people had already been forcibly driven. When was it? October 2023, last year. Imagine now, this is 500,000 people. There's 1.9 million, 2 million. Everybody's been displaced. Everybody's been displaced in Gaza. Everybody. And as they moved from the north to the south, they bomb them. They destroy them. They kill them. Read this. Read this report. Read this report. There's so much of information. And there's school massacres. People hiding in schools, they were shot dead, murdered. This frustrates me. As of August 21, the region has produced a volume of debris that is 14 times greater than the combined total from all conflicts over the past 16 years. Imagine that. The United Nations Mine Action Service estimated the amount of debris in Gaza at 37 million tons in mid-April, or 300 kilograms per square meter, stating there was more rubble than in Ukraine, and the rubble is heavily contaminated with unexploded ordnance. Like mines, step on them, they blow you up. On May 2nd, this is months ago, UNDP estimated it would take between 40 to 50 billion to rebuild Gaza. Destruction of civilian infrastructure. I mean, you can go on and on and on. And here's an interesting, this is an interesting kind of map, because it shows the area of destruction in Gaza. October 15th, November 7th. Can you see the red dots? November 26th, January 7th. So they're sending them down, and as they're going down, they're destroying them. Can you see they're sending them down? The initial thought is to deal with Hamas on the top, but they're sending them down, and they're killing them and murdering and causing destruction. February 29th. Look at the red. This is the red, the level of destruction and displacement. March 31st, May 3rd, May 29th, July 6th, August 18th, September 6th. This is data showing destroyed roads as of September 6th and destroyed building. Displayed together, they highlight areas of mass destruction, notably in the buffer zone and around the corridors created by the Israeli military. In a briefing to the UN Security Council, this is again beginning of the year, and this is in the beginning of the year, there is no health system to speak of left in Gaza. Israel's military has dismantled hospital after hospital. As of May 8th, only 12, that was May 8th, only 12 out of the 36 hospitals are partially functioning. None are fully functioning now. None. Is this self-defense? Is this what self-defense is? Is this self-defense? As of July 15th, 90,000 people had been wounded in hospitals since October, but there are only 1,532 inpatient hospital beds in Gaza. The residential buildings destroyed. This is before and after effects. The Netzarim Corridor, Gaza City, October 2023, This is August 26, 2024. Look at it. Look at it. Just look at it. Before and after satellite imagery. Before and after satellite. This is by the newspaper Haaretz. And Haaretz, they've now boycotted Haaretz, if you recall. They want to shut down Haaretz because Haaretz is the left-wing news media publication that is exposing the atrocities in Gaza. Recently, and the Human Rights Watch reports about Israeli soldiers taking to social media to show themselves taking part in the burning of homes in Gaza, in some cases in revenge or even for the October. Every day a different platoon goes out to raid homes in the area. The houses are destroyed, occupied. Now what is left is to thoroughly search them inside the couches, closet. We found all of these. In the end, the house is burned with everything. This they're finding glee. They torched. This is not bombing. This is burning 3,000 residents as of February 7th, 2024. This is the report by the Euromed Human Rights Monitor on the evacuation of homes next to the Al-Shifa medical complex. They document the burning of buildings, burning of houses, and the carry out of demolitions completely. Agricultural lands. This is absolutely appalling, shocking, destruction that you see. Here's it here again, the buffer zone on the Philadelphia corridor. Satellite image from August and then, of course, last year as well. This is February 28th. Look at February 28th on the Philadelphia corridor. Rafah, Philadelphia corridor. Look at August 31st, 2024. Can you see that? Do you see a difference? Is this self-defense? Raising around an access road created by the Israeli military, Jabalia refugee camp, the one we've talked about. This is a satellite image shows the extent of the area raised around a new access road constructed by the Israeli military. In the first 200 to 400 meters around the road, all the buildings and orchards have been systematically raised. These are fruit trees, apple trees, orchards, agriculture. It's got nothing to do with Hamas. It's got nothing to do with self-defense. Absolutely nothing. So the conclusion of this particular report is that they go into an unnecessary detail. The fundamental principle of lawful evacuation is a guaranteed right of individuals to return to the area once hostilities have been concluded. The extensive and often permanent damage across Gaza is a deliberate attempt by the Israeli authorities to create conditions that will make returning not just difficult, but impossible. The long-term implications of the destruction are profound. Even if the Israeli authorities permitted or were no longer able to block rebuilding, the process will be immense, requiring substantial international financial and technical support spanning decades. As of September 2024, it is estimated that there are 42 million tons of rubble in an area that is 87% urbanized. Here's the report. The physical damage doesn't take into account the psychological scars of the inhabitants. They've lost their home, their education, their religious, their cultural institution, their sense of security, but also their families. Generations have been lost. Some, one child with no family remaining. Nothing at all. Entire family gone. Entire generation gone. Grandmother, grandfather, mother, sister, siblings, gone, finished. Imagine losing an entire family. Gone. You alone. This is the Israelis' ministry, imagine that, of agriculture and food security, Avi Dichter. He says, obviously, Gaza tomorrow will not look anything like it did before October 7th. How it looks territorially, we don't have the details. But that is our objective. That is our objective. There won't be any terrorists on our borders like there were before. Terrorists meaning there won't be any Palestinians. They view all Palestinians as terrorists. So this is a crime. A war crime, a crime against humanity. Absolutely. And I mean, this is what they basically stated. This is what they stated in the beginning of this genocide. Whilst balancing accuracy, right now we focus on what causes maximum damage. All the civilian population in Gaza is ordered to leave immediately. We will win. They will not receive a drop of water or a single battery until they, and they've got in inverted commas Hamas, although they don't say Hamas in the original quote, until they leave the world. What do we mean leave the world? The Gaza Strip must be small at the end of the war. Second, losing life is a price Arabs understand. Racist! Settlement in Gaza should not be renewed. At the end of this war, not only will Hamas no longer be in Gaza, the territory of Gaza will also decrease. This is this swine, Amishai Eliyahu, Minister of Heritage. North Gaza is more beautiful than ever. Imagine what he'll say now. This is November 2nd, 2023. Blowing up and flattening everything is beautiful. Beautiful. Once we are finished, we will hand over the lands of Gaza to the fighting soldiers and settlers who lived in the Gush Katif. We are rolling out the Nakba. This is what we are saying. We are rolling out the Nakba, the Gaza Nakba. We need to be in full control. That's Itmar Ben Gavir. Bezalel Smotrich. I welcome the initiative of voluntary immigration, ethnic cleansing. This is a humanitarian solution. Ethnic cleansing, humanitarian solution. Our problem is finding countries that are willing to absorb Gazans, and we are working on it. Well, why the hell don't you take them in? Take them into Israel. Take them into Tel Aviv. They belong there. They were kicked out of Israel. We will be there security-wise in order to rule there security-wise for a long time. What needs to be done in the Gaza Strip is to encourage immigration. If there are 100,000 and 200,000 Arabs in Gaza and not 2 million, the entire discussion on the day after will be totally different. Kill them all. Without settlement, there is no security. And without security, there is no security in any part of Israel. These are all the quotes, quotes after quotes after quotes. This is the minister, imagine that, for social equality and advancement of the status of women in Israel. We will hit them where it hurts, their land. Anyone who uses his land to plan another Holocaust will receive another Nakba from us. What are you talking about? Another Nakba, meaning worse than, this is worse than the Nakba. So, this report goes on and on and on. Persecution, murder, rape, massacre, destruction, genocide. Come on this program and defend this. Come and defend this. Come and defend this and explain how it's self-defense, as you have over the past several months, those aberrant satanic bastards. That's what you are. Because if you are supporting these satanic bastards, then you yourself are a satanic bastard, scumbag. I'm sorry to use these words, but what else can I do? This is what you are. You've called yourself that by standing on the part of evil. So there's a StreamYard link. Brother Muhammad will share the StreamYard link on this channel. Those we've been wanting to come on, we have sometimes, not always, but sometimes we have nutcrackers on this program. Those who have absolutely no... I see in the last stream, my mic was slightly lowered for some reason. So I hope my sound is far more audible now. This is a StreamYard link. Click on that StreamYard link. For those who are, this is a StreamYard link, as you can see. So it's streamyard.com/ it's https://streamyard.com/9 JAAQN3932. It should also be in the YouTube link channel. But take this and click on that. So it's streamyard.com and go to the side chats on the South African Debate Initiative link, streamyard.com/9 JAAQN3932. If you want to challenge us, and as the program is called, the South Coast stands up to this Israeli genocide, to Israeli savagery. And this, what you've seen on your screen here, is the 154-page Human Rights Watch report published on November 14th, 2024. Israel's forced displacement on Palestinians in Gaza. Go to Google if you can't find it, and just type in Human Rights Watch report, November 14th, 2024. It'll give you this. You click on it, you read the 154-page document, share it with your friends, foes, neighbors, people out there, educate them, make copies, make photocopies, print it out, share it, give it out in the street. If you're in Speaker's Corner, go to Speaker's Corner in London. I wish I was there with you one day. And share it with the people. Expose them to what you see here and let them see this. Anyway, I've been speaking quite a bit, Mohammed, and I think you've seen that particular video. Maybe you want to share a few words.
Yeah, it's a very powerful video. Blogging his journey throughout the Gaza Strip, and wherever he went, he saw death and destruction, and close himself came to dying, actually being shouted in somebody else's car. That was very, very powerful. I do encourage people who are watching right now and who probably watch this stream maybe in the future is to share the stream, share and like and subscribe to the channels. Of course, I have been shadow banned, no doubt about it. My views are very low. So please do your bit. Please share and subscribe and like this particular show and the shows that we have been doing, highlighting the Israeli savagery upon the Palestinian people. There's something backstage you want to share?
Yeah, there's something. Yeah, there's another report here. I don't know if there's anyone backstage, but this is, I don't know if you know, Francesca Albanese, the Italian. I'm hoping to get her on our stream if I can. I haven't yet reached out, contact her, but I hope to get Francesca Albanese. So follow the stream, brother. We're going to probably get some exciting guests. We're hoping to get Imam Al Asif on Monday night, Monday at 8:30. I'm trying to. That's this coming Monday at about 8:30 South African time, which will be 7:30 United Kingdom time. We're an hour ahead. And I'm hoping to get Dr. Safi Kaskas, the Lebanese translator of the Quran, who's agreed to join us. It was too short of a notice today. He's agreed to come on. We've had Safi Kaskas on my stream in the past, some years back. I hope to also get Francesca Albanese, who is a UN Special Rapporteur. And this is her report. This is the report by the Special Rapporteur on the Situation of Human Rights in Palestine since 1967. This was published on the 1st of October, 2024. Basically, this is a summary of the report, but you can download the entire report. She examines the horror story in the occupied Palestinian territory. So she deals with the Gaza as well as the West Bank. And she mentions that the violence is not happening in a vacuum, but is part of a long-term, intentional, systematic, state-organized forced displacement and replacement of the Palestinians. And member states have to intervene to prevent new atrocities that will further scar human history. So that is Francesca Albanese, who is a special rapporteur on the occupied territories in Palestine. She's the first woman, and she's been absolutely remarkable as a figure. You know, if I could call her a Boadicea. You know, if you study who Boadicea is in Greek, I think Greek or mythology, that's what she is basically in speaking out and standing up against this Israeli belligerency. And even she's been accused of anti-Semitism. She was supposed to address the U.S. Congress about a couple of weeks back. They turned her down. She's spoken many times to the UN General Assembly. Her reports are crisp and succinct. She's done about a 100-page report here. This is a summary. You can download the entire report and read it. And for those who basically want that report, they can contact Brother Muhammad, email him or link up to him on Twitch, or I don't know if he's on Instagram or Twitter or whatever the case is, and I'll forward the documentation to him. For those who want material, you can take down my email address. It's yusufismaillaw@gmail.com, yusufismaillaw@gmail.com. I use that because it's got if you want any book, if you want a library of resource material by people and authors like Rashid Khalidi, Norman Finkelstein, we've got all his books, every single book of his. Nur Masalha, who many people don't know, but he's a phenomenal United Kingdom-based academic. Written his magnum opus is called Palestine: A 1,000-Year History. Nur Masalha is a Palestine: A 1,000-Year History, plus a number of other books. We've got Ilan Pape. We've got Yuri Davis, Professor Yuri Davis, Jewish individuals. We've got Jamie Stein Weiner, who's written an excellent book on October 7th, a collation of articles. We've got Avi Schleim. So if you need any material and books, or even quick notice to kind of use information at your fingertips, email me or make contact with Muhammad, and we will send you the resource material out there. This resource material is expensive to purchase online if you go via Amazon. If you go via Amazon or you go via Take a Lot or some of these book outlets, they're extremely expensive, particularly because the publishing houses like Penguin and Pluto Press and Oxford University Press, unfortunately, are expensive. But we've got all the material. We've got hundreds of material, entire books on PDF. So if you want the books, make your request or leave your email in the stream chat, or alternatively you can email me at yusufismaillaw@gmail.com. Email me for the request of what you are particularly looking for, and I'll try and get that available to you and give you the material and the information that you can then use and share this to others. So our main aim in doing this is to confront propaganda. We're not asking for money. We don't want payment from anyone. We want you to share the message, share the stream, clip the stream. There's no copyright. Download it as a YouTube, as a WhatsApp video. Download it as a YouTube video on your own channel. Clip it wherever you want to. Put it on what they call this TikTok videos. I don't know how long TikTok videos are. Put it on Instagram or Facebook or social media accounts. We want to share this information out there. It's not about us. We don't care about us. We're not promoting ourselves. Therefore, we're not asking for personal payments. If you want to support the South African Debate Initiative and the Coventry Faith Foundation, by all means do so. But our aim is basically to confront the Israeli diaspora. And I believe we've been doing that consistently and powerfully for the past several months. And so we would like to share this information to all of you out.
Yeah, I just want you to kind of have this thought process. Last time we had some individual come on, and you mentioned that Israel is apartheid system, and he was denying that fact. I would love for you to talk a bit more in depth regarding your answer to that particular individual regarding the apartheid system that Israel have got regarding the Palestinians. He was constantly saying the Palestinian people are free to travel throughout Israel and Tel Aviv, and they have equal rights and so forth, without bringing any evidence. It was just the fact that he visited Israel at a particular year, and he didn't see anything negative. So I would love to hear some comments from you regarding the situation of Israel being apartheid country.
Okay, so basically at the outset, and as I'm glad you asked, because I think these are the core points that we need to address and look at. The Apartheid Convention, I don't know if anyone's in the stream, Brother Mohammed, but if they want to, they can come on. But I'll answer the question, I think, first. And those who are out in the stream, please do come on. We want you to challenge us. The Apartheid Convention of 1973, it defines apartheid as inhuman acts or inhumane acts that are committed for a particular purpose of establishing and maintaining dominance by one race over another race, over another group of people. So like you had in apartheid South Africa, where you systematically oppress them based on your racial superiority. And what apartheid did, as in South Africa, is that it dehumanizes people. Like you've got white beaches, you've got black beaches. I was even told that in our court system, and I'm an attorney, a criminal lawyer, that back in the day, I was told, I was surprised that there were separate entries in the court for white lawyers and black lawyers. That's at the very peripheral level on the basis of a color bar. But it continued in terms of the economic privileges that it gave the white minorities over the black and other minority or other racial groups in South Africa. Now, that's the definition of apartheid. When it comes to Israel, there's a universal consensus by both political and religious leaders, like, for example, our late Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who died in 2022, even former President Jimmy Carter. You had our foreign minister, Ronnie Kasrils. You had rights groups like the Human Rights Watch, and you've got legal scholars like Richard Falk, Virginia Tilley, and even, for example, John Dugard. John Dugard, who's a professor of law, his book on international is a standard textbook. He's guest lectured at the University of Natal, where I studied law. He was in part of the team that was involved. He's the old man, the elderly gentleman that's about 90 years old that was involved in imagine that, 90 years old, involved in arguing the case at the International Court of Justice at The Hague at the beginning of this year. Him, amongst many others, and institutions like the United Nations and the OAU have used the term to describe Israel's actions against the Palestinians as apartheid. So the Apartheid Convention defines what apartheid is. And number two, there is a universal consensus that what Israel is engaging in is, in fact, apartheid. So, for example, you had the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Equality in 2017. They conducted an inquiry in terms of Israeli practices towards the Palestinian people on the West Bank, on the Gaza Strip, and indeed even in Israel itself. And they concluded after this inquiry and report that Israel has established an apartheid regime that dominates the Palestinian people as a whole. What this basically means is that they methodically, just like the whites were methodically privileged in South Africa, Israeli authorities implement laws which privilege Jewish Israelis and discriminate against Palestinians. So you've got laws, you've got policies, and you've got statements by Israeli officials that make the point that the main objective is maintaining Jewish Israeli control over demographics, political power, and land that in fact dominates government policy. And in pursuit of that particular goal, they've basically ensured that the Palestinians have been dispossessed, forcibly separated, and subjugated. And this is before the genocide, in fact, commenced. There was a report, I don't know if I can open the report, but there was a report in 2021. And again, I'm trying to look at, so the HRW report of 2021, Israeli apartheid. Let me see if I can basically get that. Here we are. I think this is it here. Absolutely. Imagine this. This is a report which I want to share with you. For those who are questioning this, this is about, let me see how many pages this is. Yeah, here we are. I'm going to share this. Brother Mohammed, if you can share this. This is a Human Rights Watch report. It's how many pages? This is about more than 200 pages. More than 200 pages. Have you got it there on your screen? This is more than 200 pages. April 27th, 2021. And it's about going to 200 pages. This is a report which, let me just try and open it up here. That's Israel's crimes against humanity. We're not going there. StreamYard Studio. Yeah, here's a report of have I closed it or have I opened it? I just want to try and see if I get this here. A threshold lost. Yeah, here we are. A threshold growth. This is Israeli authorities and the crimes of apartheid and persecution. So what this report did is that it looked at this position in the West Bank. It looked at the position. This is the wall, the Great Wall in the West Bank. It looked at the position in the Gaza Strip. It looked at the position in East Jerusalem. And then it basically analyzed and illustrated and showed that Israel engages legally in a systematic form of what it means to be apartheid. So this basically applies the application of Israel's policies towards the Palestinians intend to maintain domination, systematic oppression, and institutional discrimination, inhumane acts and abuses of fundamental human rights. The report concludes that Israel policies and practice towards Palestinians compares them to the treatment of Jewish Israelis living in the same territory. It's not an exhaustive evaluation, but it deals with it. The report draws on years of research and documentation by Human Rights Watch. And at the outset, the report comes out to be neutral. It doesn't even want to compare Israel with South Africa and apartheid. That's not basically its aim. But it's a neutral report. And then it basically goes on to conclude that the human rights that Israeli government has demonstrate an intent to maintain the domination of Jewish Israelis over Palestinians across Israel in the occupied Palestinian territories. And that intent has been coupled with systematic oppression of Palestinians and inhumane acts committed against them based on the superiority. So coming back to what I stated initially, if you look at some of these laws that are basically there, the claim of apartheid, number one, there's something, for example, called the Nation State Bill that was published in July 2018. The law states, and I'm just summarizing it, that the state of Israel is a national home of Jewish people, which it fulfills its natural, cultural, religious, and historical right to self-determination. So it's Jewish people. The right to exercise self-determination is unique to the Jewish people, not Palestinians. The state views the development of a Jewish settlement, this is settlements which are declared as illegal in terms of international law, as a national value and will act to encourage and promote its establishment and consolidation. So that statement makes it clear that Israel believes only Jewish people have any claim over the land it currently rules over. And that basic ideology, in fact, calls and is entrenched in the Israeli legal system for a situation whereby there is a continued domination of non-Jews in all land that is exclusively under Israeli control. So this is the reality of the situation. So for example, if you look at the position in Israel from 1940, if you look at, for example, what happened in South Africa. In South Africa, because apartheid is an Afrikaans term meaning separateness, it means differentiation between policies. If you apply it to Israel, from 1948 to 66, the Palestinians within Israel lived under military rule, meaning these Israeli Arabs who they talk about so highly that they love Israel, they lived under military rule. They were considered a military threat to the Israeli state, and they were ruled under a completely different set of laws than the Jewish population. That's exactly what happened in apartheid South Africa. After 1966, the military rule was lifted, and they were then replaced by the apartheid laws that were designated to discriminate against Arabs in Israel itself. So, for example, there's an organization called Adala. This is an Arab rights organization in Israel. It lists something like about 20 laws that specifically provide unequal rights and obligations based on what Israelis call nationality, which in Israel is also, designated as on the basis of religion. So, for example, just like in South Africa, over 80% of the land in Israel, which was once owned by Palestinians, have been confiscated by Israelis. 93% of Israel's land can only be leased or owned by Jews or Jewish agencies. Palestinian unemployment in Israel, I'm not talking about the West Bank and Gaza, in Israel, is over 40%, far higher than Jewish Israelis. In 1996, twice as many Arab citizens as Jewish citizens lived below the poverty line. If you, for example, look at some of the discriminatory laws that are there, let me list a few. There's something called the Admissions Committee laws. The Admissions Committee's law, it creates a situation whereby within Israel, there are Jews-only communities who are assigned state land, but the Arabs are excluded on the basis that they do not fit within the community social fabric. Yeah, the same thing in apartheid South Africa. We had in apartheid South Africa the Bantustan enclaves where certain land was apportioned to whites only, and others were basically apportioned only to blacks. So the whites in this country took the best land, the arable land, and they gave the worst of the land to other race groups. Same thing happens inside Israel. The loyalty oath law, there is a law in Israel where Palestinians and other non-Jewish citizens like the Druze and Christians, they have to swear allegiance to Israel as a Jewish and democratic state, thereby, by extension, turning Arabs Israelis into second-class citizens, similar to South Africa. We had, for example, the allegiance to the anthem, the stem, die blauw van ons hemel, die Heerde waar ons sang. I can't even recall the words in Afrikaans, but essentially, the national anthem privileged the white class. Same thing happens. Arab Israelis are not allowed to live in Israel with their Palestinian spouses from the West Bank. If you look at Jewish settlements that are built on state lands in Israel and even on the West Bank, Arab Israeli citizens can't go there. So the Arab Israelis within Israel can't even live in the Jewish settlements on the West Bank, which the Israelis go to. So much for equality for the Arab Israelis inside Israel. As it is, we know the West Bank Palestinians are abused, but the Palestinians within Israel who've got citizenship within Israel, who are descendants of the Nakba, who were never ethnically cleansed, and they were there, but they were left in a starving, decimated situation. These Palestinians within Israel, the Israeli Arabs, if there's a Jewish settlement built within Israel or on the West Bank, in occupied West Bank, they can't go there. The settlers themselves are not allowed to sell land to Arab Israeli citizens. Israel itself has the largest imposition of emergency laws in the world, which rob citizens of their basic human rights. The Arab Israelis are discriminated against by being denied the use of water resources for cultivating their fields. So, for example, you have a situation where Israelis can basically, like you've got municipalities in South Africa, I think I assume in the same in Coventry, you've got your local municipalities, then show that certain portions of Coventry, for example, have a lot of water, have access to electricity, and other parts of Coventry are denied. Similar thing in Israel. So I'm giving Coventry as an example so people can look at it. Not that it's happening in Coventry, but as an example, hypothetically, that would be the equivalent. That's what you've got in Israel itself, proper, that within Israel, the Israeli Arabs, who are the Palestinians, have certain accesses. The Israelis have rights which these Israelis are basically excluded of completely. So the situation is as follows, that this particular report, this is a report here that I've just basically shown you in terms of the Israeli Palestinians and those that are basically here. So this is a table. Look at this table here. Integrating Jews, separating Palestinians. 6.8 million Jewish Israelis. They are free to live in Israel, East Jerusalem, and most of the West Bank. 6.8 million Palestinians, Palestinian citizens of Israel. They are barred effectively from hundreds of small Jewish towns in Israel and largely concentrated on only about 3% of the land. So imagine that. Those people who are barking over the years that Israeli Arabs have got, they're living bliss and there's no apartheid and they are fine, they've got equal rights. Well, 6.8 million of them, who are Palestinian citizens of Israel, only live on 3% of the land. So 97% of the land is owned by Jews. In the occupied Palestinian territory in East Jerusalem this is the Human Rights Watch report, Israel guarantees residency rights to Jewish Israelis. But for Palestinians, these are the Palestinians who are Israeli citizens, residency is conditional and revocable. So what is that? So the fact that you give Palestinian citizenship doesn't mean that you're not engaging in apartheid. In South Africa, everybody had citizenship. Everybody had citizenship. Black, white, colored, Indian, everybody, all of us had citizenship. But that doesn't mean we had equal rights. So now they make the claim that, as many of these propagandists do, that, well, look at Israeli Arabs. They've even given citizenship to Israel. But the fact that they're given citizenship doesn't mean that they get the same rights. West Bank ID holders barred effectively from building in the majority of the West Bank, entering Israeli settlements. Gaza ID holders barred, with a few exceptions, from leaving Gaza or living in other parts of the occupied Palestinian territories. Meaning, if you live in Gaza, you can't go and live in the West Bank as a Palestinian. You can't live in East Jerusalem. In the West Bank, authorities, this is the Israeli authorities, have confiscated more than 2 million dunams of land from Palestinians, making up more than 1/3 of the West Bank, including tens of thousands of dunams that they acknowledge are privately owned by Palestinians. What is this if not apartheid? This is what the white man did to the black. One common tactic they have is to declare territory, including Palestinian land, as state land. That's exactly what the South African government did. They said, this is state land. The apartheid government, this state land, it doesn't belong to you. Now they confiscate it. The Israeli Peace Group now estimates that the Israeli government has designated about 1.4 million dunams of land, or about a quarter of the West Bank, as state land. And the West Bank is a land that they illegally occupied in 1967, which had only Palestinians living. This group has also found that more than 30% of the land used for settlements is acknowledged by the Israeli government. Sorry, I missed that. Is acknowledged by the Israeli government. Where are we? Let me just get back to this. I think that by the Israeli the group has the more than 30% of the land is acknowledged by the Israel as having been privately owned by Palestinians. Of the more than 675,000 dunams of state land that the Israeli authorities have allocated for use by third parties in the West Bank, they have earmarked more than 99% for use by Israeli civilians. Land grabs for settlements and infrastructure that primarily serve settlers effectively concentrate Palestinians in the West Bank, according to B'Tselem, into 165 non-contiguous territorial islands. Look at the word they use. Israeli authorities have also made it virtually impossible in practice for Palestinians in Area C. That's roughly 60% of the West Bank that the Oslo Accord placed under full Israeli control. You know what they always talk about? The Oslo Accords. Why didn't you accept the Oslo Accord? Well, the Oslo Accords placed 60% of the West Bank under full Israeli accord. Must they accept that? Must they accept that? In Area C, for example, authorities approved less than 1.5% of applications by Palestinians to build between 2016 and 2018, 21 in total, a figure 100 times smaller than the number of demolition orders it uses in the same period, according to official data. Israeli authorities, so it's not just these fanatical Israeli settlers, but authorities who use the settlers as their foot soldiers, have raised thousands of Palestinian properties in these areas for lacking a permit in land that they owned and land that their forefathers lived, leaving thousands of families displaced. By contrast, according to Peace Now, Israeli authorities began constructions on 23,696 units between 2009 and 2020 in Israeli settlements in Area C. In Area C, which is land designated for Palestinians, unlike Area A and B, you've started building housing units. So imagine that there's a West Bank, which they call Judea and Samaria. This is our Judea and Samaria. And they apportion it into land for the settlers, land for the Palestinians, and land for others. But in the land for the Palestinians, which is Area C, they've also started constructing units. So transfer on occupying civilian population, occupied territory, violates the Fourth Geneva Convention. It doesn't mean anything to them. It doesn't mean anything. The policies growing out of long-standing Israeli government plans, for example, the 1980 Drobel's plan, which guided this government settlement policy in the West Bank at the time and built on prior plan, called for authorities to settle the land between the Arab minority population centers and the surroundings, noting that doing so would make it hard for Palestinians to create territorial contiguity and political unity and remove any trace of doubt about our intention to control Judea and Samaria forever. 1980, what is this? In Jerusalem, the government's plan for municipality, including both the west and occupied east of the city, sets the group of maintaining solid Jewish majority in the city and a target demographic ratio of 70% Jews and 30% Arabs, later adjusted to 60-40 after authorities acknowledged that this goal is not attainable because the Palestinians won't move. They are there forever. The Israeli government has also carried out discriminatory seizures of land inside Israel. For those who say there's no Israel, no apartheid inside Israel, authorities have seized through different mechanisms at least 4.5 million dunams of land from Palestinians inside Israel, constituting 65 to 75% of the land owned by Palestinians between 1948 and 40 to 60% of the land that Palestinians who remained after 1948 and became citizens of Israel. So you relegate them to second-class citizens. Wake up, people, wake up. I hope you're listening to this. I really hope you're listening to this, because this is not me saying it. This is not Al Jazeera saying it. This is not Brother Muhammad saying it. This is no biased Coventry Faith Foundation or biased South African Debate Initiative stating it. This is a Human Rights Watch report that has got no dog in this race, that at the outset set out to say it doesn't want to make any comparison with apartheid South Africa. Since 1948, the government has authorized the creation of more than 900 Jewish localities inside Israel. But it has allowed only a handful of government-planned townships and villages for Palestinians, created largely to concentrate previously displaced Bedouin communities living in the Negev. If this is not apartheid, tell me exactly what it is. Inside Israel. Don't come with this garbage, oh, you've got Arab judges as an aberration, or Arab Palestinian, Israeli Arabs can be in the parliament. Look at the reality. We also had, in the heights of apartheid, we also had black politicians. We also had Indian politicians in what was called the what was this this Mickey Mouse tricameral parliamentary system that was set up. We had the Bantustans, where you had these proverbial black leaders. And in fact, the apartheid whites, apartheid government, apartheid South Africa gave these blacks more rights than Israel gives to the Palestinians. Do you know that? They give more rights to the black people because what they did, they allocated land to to black people townships, Bantustan, and so on. But within these Bantustan enclaves, like Bophuthatswana, like Transkei, for those South Africans who are listening to the stream and watching it and know these terminologies, but within these Bantustan enclaves, they gave black leaders superficial powers of authority. There was a very close alignment between the Zulu monarchy and the apartheid system. And not surprisingly, the Zulu monarchy in South Africa, in fact, supports the apartheid state. The late King Goodwill Zwelithini supported the apartheid state, supported it wholly. So there was a very strong nexus between, the apartheid South Africa creating these so-called black elitists who then control blacks within their own particular enclaves. But the Palestinians don't even have that. They don't even have that. Yes, they've done it to a certain extent with the Palestinian Authority, because the Palestinian Authority, at least to a large extent, after they ceased becoming a liberation movement, by and large was the enforcer of the gangster. The Palestinian Authority was the enforcer of the gangster state. And that's what they did in the West Bank. So now, when the Palestinian Authority was given superficial administrative control, they gave them authority to arrest Palestinians. They had no authority over the Israelis living on the West Bank, but they gave authority to the Palestinian Authority to arrest the Palestinians, charge them, and detain Palestinians for and on behalf of the Israeli Defense Force, and then tried them according to military law, not according, because the Israelis on the West Bank are tried in according to the laws of Israel and have Israeli citizenship. The Palestinians in the West Bank have no citizenship and are tried in accordance with military law. So they are kept under illegal administrative military detention. Right now, there are about 15,000 kept under Israeli military detention, children as young as 10 and 12. So talk about getting rid of them, those people. Get rid of these hostages first, and then we get rid of the others, the 100, which I support getting rid of. And that was the whole aim of Hamas on October 7th. Their aim and their strategy, has been mentioned on October 7th, was solely to go and kidnap hostages and take a lot of soldiers as hostages. And they came across this festival, the Novara film, the Novara Music Festival, and at the Kibbutz Be'eri and the other places. And they didn't know about this festival. They never knew about it. They came across it by surprise. Their main aim was to target, if you look at the policy document of Hamas on October 7th, what they'd stated, the official spokespeople, that their own main aim was to get the hostages in order that they could then negotiate a deal whereby Palestinians who are kept and languishing in dungeons are then basically also released. That was the whole aim of October 7th. And of course, Israel then basically engaged in the Hannibal Directive. They murdered their own hostages en masse. There was mass Hannibal on that particular day, which is then blamed on the Palestinians. And of course, there were criminal gangs that had come into Gaza itself, but there were nothing like the mass rape and horror stories that you see. None of that was there. But just as an example, I'm just basically saying, in line, linking up with the discussion of Israeli apartheid, that get rid of the hostages. Look at this here: land confiscation and other discriminatory land policies in Palestinian municipalities inside Israel, denying them opportunities for natural expansion enjoyed by Jewish municipalities. The vast majority of Palestinian citizens, who make around 19%, live in these municipalities, which have an estimated jurisdiction of less than 3% of land. While Palestinians in Israel can move freely, such as Haifa, Tel Aviv, and Acre, Israeli law permits small towns to exclude prospective residents based on their asserted incompatibility with the town's social cultural fabric. What is that? That is a policy of separateness. And one word for separateness in the Afrikaans language is apartheid.
Absolutely.
According to
I really want to move on, because I think you really answered this question, mashallah, with so much information, and I don't want to overwhelm the audience. There's some breaking news coming out right now. The former defense minister of Israel, I think his name is Moshe Ya'alan, he's actually stated that the Israeli government is actually carrying out ethnic cleansing in northern Gaza. This is just coming out now from Israel. So that's a very interesting statement that the former defense minister has mentioned. And that will be really damning for the current government. And I'd love to get your thoughts on that before we bring on a guest.
So thank you for that, Brother Mohammed. I didn't know about this, but I'm just looking at the, this is why news and information, basically, you need to be up to date with it. I wasn't aware of this, but thanks for bringing. I've just checked up this here. I think this is what you're probably looking at here. This is the stream. This is the link. This is the breaking. Well, the breaking: more than 40 killed in Israeli airstrike targeting House of Al-Araj in Jabalia. That's also breaking right now as we talk, just to show more murder. But I think this is now. This is the Israeli defense minister. Ethnic cleansing, if you can share the screen, now underway in northern Gaza. Former Israeli defense minister. Beit Lahia no longer exists. Beit Hanun no longer exists. And now they are working on Jabalia. Former Israeli defense minister said today that Israelis carrying out ethnic cleansing, accusing Prime Premier Benjamin Netanyahu of leading the country to ruin. Speaking in an interview with the Israeli channel Democrat, Yalon criticized the policy of Netanyahu's right-wing government. This is what he says: "We are being dragged into occupation, annexation, and ethnic cleansing, displacement, and Jewish settlement." Yalon, who served as a defense minister in 2013-2016, emphasized that Israeli army's actions in Gaza amount to ethnic cleansing. Wow, I didn't know this. I'm just reading it now in real time as you brought it to my attention. And we discussed the Human Rights Watch report, which dealt with this on the 14th of November. Then you interrupted. Did I hear you correctly? Ethnic cleansing, do you think we're on the path? Yalon responded, why on the path? What is happening there? Beit Lahia no longer exists. Beit Hanun no longer exists. And now they're working on Jabalia. They, the Israeli army, are cleansing the area of Arabs. This is exactly what he says. This is him. This is the former defense minister. States clearly ethnic cleansing.
He must be working. He must be working for Hamas. Oh, he must be working for.
And I mean,
yeah, it has to be.
Isn't it amazing? We had Muslims. Who's the brother that came on? He was a Muslim chap.
He's actually on now. We've got Anam.
Is he on now? Wow.
Yeah.
Anam. Is his name Anam? Is it Anam?
Yeah, he's on the stage now. Welcome, Anam, to the show.
Hey, welcome. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Peace be upon you. So should I say shalom?
It means the same thing, brother.
It means the same thing, but it means the same thing. So you've been watching the stream, I take it. You've been seeing the reports. Brother Muhammad brought out something that is happening. You agree with me now. I mean, this is what the defense minister, you agree with me that what's happening in northern Gaza and in Gaza, indeed, in general, is ethnic cleansing. You're not disputing that now, are you?
You know, I mean, I don't think that you could actually say that claim. First, I mean, I don't have data of the battlefield, but
But Anam, hold on. And now I find it bizarre. I provided to you the Human Rights Watch report, which dealt with a 165-page document. We couldn't go through it, which systematically dealt with it in detail by people on the ground, by individuals on the ground, by eyewitness reports, by charity and relief organizations, by the facts, which basically show that there's a forced systematic displacement, which is under the guise of command responsibility based on official military doctrine that comes right from the top. And now you've got
but okay,
the former Israel. Just one point before you come in.
Gee.
Don't you find it remarkable that the former Israeli defense minister is now even confirming that ethnic cleansing is happening? And you are trying to say that there's no ethnic cleansing and you can't make that particular claim of ethnic cleansing?
So you know, brother, respectfully, you know, because you're very pointed. Okay, so I don't want you to feel, you know, look, brother, I've been around, you know, a long time. I'm 38 years old, right? Ethnic cleansing was Serbia and Bosnia and Croatia, right? Means that it used to be a Muslim village. The Serbs came in, they killed all the men and boys. And now the only people who live there are going to be Serbs. From now on, it's a Serbian village, and the Croats did the same thing. So, I mean, the reason I'm pushing back on you, you know, and the reason I'm getting a little pointed, is because it's not like the place Jabalia and so on is going to be an Israeli village now. It's when this war is over, and I would like it to be over today if we can. It's going to come back to being a Palestinian city in Gaza, north to south. So that's why I'm a little bit confused and befuddled, because these words, you know, even the term genocide I would dispute. But let me pause there.
Okay, so let me first ask you this: what's your definition of ethnic cleansing?
I just told you, brother. Like all the Serbs come in, and now it's a Serbian village. It's no longer a Bosnian
Is it a
village.
Serbian? But do you agree with me that ethnic cleansing is a systematic forced removal of an ethnic, racial, or religious group from a given area with the intent of basically removing or depopulating that particular area? That's a definition.
Okay, so if there is a war and the war is over and everybody moves back, how is that ethnic cleansing? Is what I'm saying.
So how are they going to move back? How? Tell me how they're going to move back.
Is Israel occupying northern Gaza like on a basis which is going to be continual? They're going to have to pull out. It's not, you know.
No, but they've made it clear. They've made it clear at the top level that they're going to basically reoccupy Gaza. If I want to open this up for you, this. Did you see the Human Rights Watch report?
Yeah, I heard. I thought that was about Israel proper, though. You know, the Bedouins and everything.
No, that you're missing the point. Where you were talking about the Palestinians. You're talking about the.
You were talking about apartheid.
No, that's something. I think you never came through the stream earlier. This is what I'm talking about here. Just let me share this so I can. This is released just about a week ago. If I can, you know, it's difficult to go through this again, but this is released now. Mohammed, if you can show this. This is the Human Rights Watch report. Mohammed, just share the screen here. This is on the 14th of November, 2024. Israel's crimes against humanity in Gaza, mass forced displacement and widespread destruction. And here is the 150-page report. Hopeless, starving, and besieged, Israel's forced displacement examines how Israel's conduct has led to the displacement of over 90% of the population and the widespread destruction of Gaza, which is basically the controlled demolition of homes, civilian infrastructure, areas where they have apparently created the buffer zone, and so on. But let me just open this for you. So I want before you comment, here's the.
Can you take that back? Can you go back to that one, because it says they're permanently displaced people now.
Okay, let me just go back
because
to that.
The argument is that in Serbia and other parts of the world, you know, these people were displaced.
This is a ridiculous argument because the Bosnians are there. You see, if you look at the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, which is before the World Court, there were a number of massacres that were committed. Number of massacres. And people sometimes cite the fact and raise the question that for there to be a genocide, you must kill all, which is absolute nonsense. You just need to show genocidal intent.
Yeah, I mean, you asked me about ethnic cleansing, though. Sorry.
Yeah. I'll come to ethnic cleansing, but I'm also going to deal with the aspect of genocide and tie it up to ethnic cleansing, just to clarify the point, which deals with the previous caller on the previous stream. for there to be genocide in the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, there were many massacres committed. Some massacres were 10,000, some were 20,000. There were a lot of people. Only one massacre, which was in Srebrenica, was proven to be genocidal. And in that massacre, only 5,000 Bosnians were killed. I use the term loosely, only 5,000, but only 5,000 were killed. So the point I'm making is that contrary to popular belief, which people who are ignorant don't know, you don't need the entire wiping out of an entire population for there to be genocide to take place. Provided you can show genocidal intent, even if a small number is killed, that fulfills the definition of genocide. Similarly with ethnic cleansing, if you look at the definition of ethnic cleansing, and I think, Mohammed, it's important because Anam didn't listen to this particular stream. I'm going to share the screen. This is a 154-page document, which I've asked people. It's called here, Hopeless, Starving, and Besieged. This is a 154-page document which details ethnic cleansing, Israel's forced displacement of Palestinians in Gaza. This is an international documentation. It's an international report. And the summary concludes that ethnic cleansing, in fact, takes place. According to the United Nations, this is the document, 1.9 million people were displaced of Gaza out of a population of 2.2 million people. This report examines the Israeli authorities' conduct, which has led to this extraordinarily high level of displacement, and finds that these actions amount to forced displacement, which is ethnic cleansing. Given the evidence, it strongly indicates that multiple acts of forced displacement were carried out with intent. It amounts to war crimes. This report further finds that the Israeli government's acts of forced displacement are widespread and systematic. And further, which is the most important point, and we don't have time to go, we went through this, but I think you were not here earlier. The statements by senior officials with command responsibility, and that's the important point here, command responsibility, not just an opinion, command responsibility, show that forced displacement is intentional and forms part of Israeli state policy and therefore amounts to a crime against humanity. Israel's actions appear to also meet the definition of ethnic cleansing. So this is not Al Jazeera. This is not a journalistic report or an opinion, as you see some opinions by people. This is a report by Human Rights Watch. It's 154 pages. I'll email the document to you. I'm going to email it to a couple of others, but it deals with it systematically and it backs it out with scientific documentation. It looks at maps. It looks at the the buffer zones around the Netzarim corridor. It actually shows how the land itself, which was once occupied by Palestinians, were reduced to such a level that not just the civilian infrastructure is destroyed, but the environmental catastrophe is of such a level that it will probably take about approximately, logistically speaking, 80 years for the environment and the development to take place. So it gives a future prediction, because there were futurists that were involved in this, that gives a time span of about 80 years to reconstruct Gaza itself, approximately 80 years, with an amount of $50 to $60 billion required for possible renewal of the particular land. Now, what this article does, which is that it juxtaposes the actual actions of the IDF, and it doesn't describe them as aberrant, but it ties it up to the actual command responsibility of the officials where they make their particular policies clear. So what I was quite amazed, you may not have been familiar with this particular report, but then Mohammed brought me to the attention of the former Israeli defense minister, who himself now is confirming, amazingly, this is a former Israeli defense minister, Yoav Malon, that Israel is in fact engaging in what is described clearly as ethnic cleansing. So it's no longer now journalists.
I really want to get Anam to respond, because I know there's a lot of information Yusuf just gave. And I really want you to push back now, because there's been numerous times you've come on, and I'm still kind of wondering, what planet are you on? Are you gone onto the spaceship that Elon Musk has made and sent to Mars, or are you on planet Earth? I really want to understand, your thought process and your worldview, because the news that is coming out right now, it's you've really got to be blinkered to negate what Brother Yusuf just mentioned. So I'll give you.
It's a pity you weren't here earlier. Yeah. Go ahead.
I want to give him ample time to respond, because sometimes I do feel that maybe we're speaking over him, and I really want to give him the chance to respond.
Yeah. Well, it's a conversation, so I'm not, I'm not trying to, I do enjoy talking to you guys and both of you brothers. But I liked watching your travel log in Tunisia and stuff. Sorry to hear you
Thank
had
you, brother.
a hard time, but it's a fun channel you guys have, actually. So, alhamdulillah, I'm glad to be a part of it. Brothers, like I feel like okay. So I don't enjoy everything that's on the screen, right? The displacement and the bombing and the residential and the 60 years of rebuilding and all that, So, but of course, then your natural question is, why are you on here defending the Zionist onslaught? So, again, I feel like my point to you guys earlier was that we're missing something here, and you're asking me what planet I'm on, right? Fair question. I will say that look, this is the planet is I am a Muslim, just like you guys, and I have been very following the international scene and stuff, what happens to our ummah for my entire young adulthood and onwards. And this tragedy that's unfolding before us is because we kind of have blinders on, and we are very lacking in our priorities as an ummah. And so this is why I would come on a Muslim channel, talking about defending the state that you guys feel is fundamentally opposed to a Muslim population. But so actually, I'm to segue right to something you said before. Is you said about the why did they reject Oslo? So Oslo was signed in 1994 by the Palestinians and Israel.
I don't want to stop you there, but I really want you to,
we want to talk about ethnic cleansing.
Yusuf, please. The question was the fact that ethnic cleansing and genocide.
Yeah.
I really want you to answer those before we go to another topic, if you don't mind. I
really of course, brother. It's your show. It's your show. So, specifically, my thing of okay. So now look, let me give you guys the ground, the high ground, right? In that, yes. So Netanyahu has specifically refused to renounce publicly the radical right-wing Israeli plan to basically recolonize Gaza. Okay, he has refused to publicly renounce it. Of course, that means he hasn't accepted it. And I think I made this clear before with both of you before. I don't support the right-wing government in Israel, right? So, but the thing is though about ethnic cleansing. My thing is,
Anam,
I wouldn't use the term ethnic cleansing.
We saw this particular pig in the United Nations hold the picture of the state of Israel and Palestine, and he was saying clearly to everybody in the audience, this is our land. We are going to take more than just this little strip here. So you blame it on the government, but he is the government. He is the head of the government. So I don't understand where you're coming from. So please,
Sure. So, I mean, respectfully.
And then before you continue, I don't want to interrupt you, but Mohammed asked a specific question. We made the point, and we backed it up from Human Rights Watch and many other reports. You weren't here earlier in the stream that what we are seeing, we're not talking about genocide, is ethnic cleansing. My question to you is why, in light of the evidence being presented, I don't know, you may not have seen it, do you not consider it ethnic cleansing when even the worst of people like the Israeli former Minister of Defense is now, when the Israeli former Minister of Defense says it's ethnic cleansing, that means something must be going on here. Don't you find it bizarre to the least? Explain to us why it's not ethnic cleansing.
I concede it is bizarre because, like I told you, I was
your position is bizarre.
I was radically pro-Palestine. Well, I'll tell you why it's bizarre and surreal for me too. I was radically pro-Palestinian in my high school days, and I was suspended actually from high school for protesting Israel's Independence Day on May 14th. Every time you say May 14th, I just go back to my 2005 suspension. But wait, so 1 second. So let me just see. So look, brother, the specifically ethnic cleansing and what's this guy's name? The not the current defense minister,
Moshe Yalon.
Moshe Yalon, thank you. So was he under Olmert? I'm trying to figure this out, because like I said, it is surreal for me to go up against an Israeli defense minister who is citing the Palestinians, and then
Forget about him. What about going against Human
Let
Rights Watch?
Google it, Yusuf.
Okay, let Google
I
it.
really
Google
want
it,
him to Google it, but
Sorry.
while he's Googling it and looking for the response,
No, he
I
was
just
under
want to
Netanyahu.
add one thing to the audience, that right now over 1.1 million people are basically on the blink of a famine, and their supplies and food supplies are totally gone. 1.1 million, and that's probably more than that's half of Gaza's population right now facing starvation. And for me, just that particular statement itself is ethnic cleansing of a group of people, just the starvation of the people by preventing food, water, electricity, and starving them to death. For me, that is a link or a highlight or a red flag to say this is ethnic cleansing. So I think he's had enough chance to Google. So anything you want to say, Anam, regarding
He was Netanyahu's defense minister from 2013 to 2016, which is even more extraordinary. So
keep thinking, Anam. Keep thinking.
You know, brother, here's the thing. I don't like.
Hey, can you share the screen for Anam so we can go through it with him, Brother Mohammed? The one I've got right now.
I read the whole article. He remember.
No, not the article. I'm talking about the Human Rights Watch. You read the 154-page document?
No, I thought you meant the article where we just talked about. Because it's not funny. The news announcer says, "Are you sure you want to call? We're headed to ethnic cleansing." He says, "Why are you saying on the path to ethnic cleansing? We're already there." So, it's an extraordinary interview, actually. I've read it. But I pay attention to your stream as much as I can. Believe me, I'm not an idle listener. And I hope I've expressed some kind of sincerity by, showing my story. I'm not really on anyone's payroll here, okay? So I'm really just here to give you my opinion, okay? Like, I think that should be
I want to ask you this, and there's a lot of posturing, but I want to ask you this in all sincerity.
Okay,
this point, and I want you to talk.
Actually,
streamline the discussion.
Both of you were. Let me talk about the ethnic cleansing and the thing, and then I want to make a point, maybe. Okay. So look, like I said, words have meanings. Socrates said if you're going to use the same word to have a different meaning, then you should use a different word. So it's very important. I don't like if Israel reoccupies northern Gaza and it puts its people there, I will say that was ethnic cleansing because you remove one population to another. Now, I see what you're telling me. You're telling me these war crimes themselves amount to ethnic cleansing. But I'm just saying, I grew up, I remember reading the news that 5,000 brothers that looked just like you and me were just lined up by Serbs. And I was like a 14-year-old kid at the time. So that's how young those boys were too. So we would have had a bullet in the back of our heads. So to me, that's ethnic cleansing, that, we all lived in a village and now it's going to be a Orthodox village, because the Serbs have moved in. Genocide too, by the way. Genocide would be trying to kill, I wouldn't even agree with the term genocide, even though I understand, like we said, there's ICC and, you have human rights and stuff. But I'm just saying, maybe what I would call genocide, you would have to call ethnocide. If they were trying to, so what I'm saying, so look, and then finally, here's one or two things, right? We're talking about the humanitarian situation, right? Is that a war crime?
Adam, for me, it's not making any sense whatsoever.
It's a war crime. I'm not saying all war crimes are ethnic cleansing and all war crimes are genocide. The war crimes are. So
is there no ethnic cleansing now? Is there no ethnic cleansing now? What's your reason for saying there's no ethnic cleansing?
They haven't moved in their population. They're doing a military operation to root out an underground army.
So let me understand your position. You are saying that there's no ethnic cleansing in Gaza because the Israelis have not yet moved into Gaza. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, ethnic cleansing would be replacing a population.
Who's occupying? Okay, so here's a question: who's occupying the north of Gaza right now?
It's an army. It's not a settler population. It's an army.
Fair enough. If you look at the report that's here on the screen, just look at it here. If you got the same screen that I've got here, and the international humanitarian law, the laws of war, forcible transfer, which means the forced displacement of any civilian inside an occupied territory, is prohibited, and if committed with criminal intent, is a war crime. The only exception
that would be forcible transfer, but in other words, like go ahead.
Forcible displacement fulfills the definition of ethnic cleansing. Now, it gives you exceptions. The only exception to this fundamental prohibition is when an occupying power evacuates people for their security or for an imperative military reason. So, as has been shown in this Human Rights Watch report, which is remarkable, if Israel can show that these people have been moved for their security, or that there's an imperative military reason for their movement, then it will have passed the test of not having fulfilled the definition of ethnic cleansing. However, there are the conditions that Israel's actions has to meet. Number one, they have to ensure that safeguards in place so that civilians who is forced from their home is moved safely, is not separated from their family, and has access to food and water. Number two, ensure the evacuation is temporary. And number three, facilitate the displaced person's return to their home as quickly as possible after the end of the hostilities in the area, not the land, in the area from where the person was displaced. My question to you now is that, can any of those three conditions here, besides having been met, they've obviously clearly not been met, but can any of these three conditions even be plausibly met in the next 80 years? Can you see the problem we've got here? And what the issue is, and I see you silent now, is that they claim that this replacement has been not by virtue of the reoccupation. To say that ethnic cleansing has not occurred, you need to show that it's for the security where you move people, and number two, that there's some imperative military reason, meaning there's some military objective. Both those conditions, the Human Rights Watch report has confirmed that they've basically not met. They've not met. The so-called claim that they've evacuated civilians to target fighters, that has fallen down. And this particular report here, they deal with this in detail. An intricate analysis of Israel's evacuation system. They look at the maps, the widespread destruction, the humanitarian situation, and they find, this is Human Rights Watch, not my report, not an opinion, that Israel's claims of lawful displacement are largely false. Human Rights Watch has amassed evidence that Israeli officials are instead committing the war crime of forcible transfer, which is a grave breach of the Geneva Conventions and a crime under the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, which fulfills the definition of ethnic cleansing. Demonstrably, Israel has not evacuated the Palestinians in Gaza for their security, as they have not been secured during evacuations or a designated safe zone, because they move to the safe zone, they blow them up there at the safe zone. Nor has Israel convincingly claimed that it had a military imperative for forcing Palestinians. Even if they were able to demonstrate such imperative, its failure to ensure the security and being a guarantor of protection of displaced persons as they fled and in the places to which they were displaced would still render the displacement unlawful. The evacuation system has failed to keep people safe, instead often served only to spread fear and anxiety. Evacuation orders were found to be inconsistent, inaccurate, and frequently not communicated to civilians with enough time to allow evacuation at all. The evacuation orders also failed to take account of the people with needs of disabilities, and the designated evacuation routes and zones were attacked by military. In conclusion, it points out, this is just the opening of the article, rather than meet its obligations, Israel has taken steps to cut military humanitarian aid, destroyed hospitals, schools, universities, everything before our very eyes. And it goes into maps. You look at the maps that are shown in this particular report, shocking, absolutely shocking. So on all counts, from a legal point of view, the report itself comes to the conclusion, based on the legal analysis, based on the scientific assessment, that in fact there is ethnic cleansing that is taking place. Look at this. This is a 154-page document. It's beyond. It's beyond debate.
Let me. I do want to address this topic because it's your show and you guys had to ask me twice about it. Okay, so look, I would feel like, again, I'm in a position of defending something, but let me defend it. Okay, so the thing is, first of all, the criteria of the military is, so you were talking about the other screen that you had up. 90% of Gaza has been forcibly transferred at one point or another, right? So like the idea would be that when they were in northern Gaza and they were in, Khan Yunis and the Gaza city, they had moved most of the population to the south. Now, yes, I know you're telling me the corridors were not protected and things like that, but I mean, I would suggest something to you, and I just, I feel like Dershowitz made a pretty decent point. Even when they bombed that World Kitchen staff kind of thing, that kind of, they say it's a battlefield accident and stuff, right? That kind of thing is the most devastating thing to Israel and the international press. I don't think purposely Netanyahu would push a button.
They did it again today. They killed 3 people again today.
But I'm specifically talking about something so high profile that,
Yeah, but
this...
they killed the human rights. They killed the World Central Kitchen workers today.
Oh, I didn't know
today.
Okay.
I was surprised.
So, yeah. But do you remember the convoy though? There was a whole convoy that was bringing all the food, and that was supposed to be like a vouched for humanitarian mission. And they get all the 12 people get blown to smithereens. So my thing is, right, that's your point when you were saying they don't protect the corridors, they don't protect the schools, they don't protect the refugee camps. Okay, but my thing is, right, there's no way Netanyahu's sitting in front of a button and he's gonna say, that Chef Jose, his staff and right hand man and all of his volunteers, I feel like they should be blown up just for good measure, for trying to help poor Palestinians who don't have adequate nutrition because they're eating the hay for the horses. So, I really think like that would have to be a mistake, and that's what the point Dershowitz made, the Harvard lawyer, academic, is that, every single...
What are you saying? What are you saying? You're saying Netanyahu is not sitting there to say, look, that these people should be killed and that they should be...
The Israeli military is purposely
bombing
corridors like that. What you're, in other words, it's okay. So we're talking about genocide, and you're reading something about forcible transfer, which is, we're talking about
ethnic cleansing, which is official policy.
And I'm defending the forcible transfer on military grounds, but you're saying the corridors aren't safe, and I'm saying there's no way they purposely bombed the corridors full of the World Kitchen staff, because that would just be, that makes Israel lose its propaganda fight, right? It just
was it a mistake?
It has to be. That's what I'm suggesting.
So here's the thing. Here's the thing. You're saying that was a mistake. You're taking us out to another discussion.
No, it's about the thing you read. You're talking about you're saying this transfer is not legal because the safe zones are not safe.
Am I frozen or are you guys frozen? I think
No, I'm here. I'm here. I can hear. I'm here.
I want to ask you, Yusuf. Yusuf, I really want to ask you. Killing 17,000 children so far. Is that just one mistake, or just just one soldier making the same mistake over and over again, or is that numerous soldiers making the same mistake again and again, or are they listening to statements from hierarchy, their generals, their leaders, that do unto them like the Amalekites, wipe them all out, women, children, annihilate them all? And we've heard that, we've seen that on social media, quoting the Old Testament and so forth. So, Yusuf, killing 17,000 children so far, do you think now, is that just one rogue soldier or a handful of rogue soldiers? And we did a report the other day where they're finding bullets in the schools of children and on chests, killing children. Yusuf, I'm asking you because I'm trying to figure out what Anam is coming from, and I don't know where he's coming from, because for me he's like on the fence. He's still denying the fact that there is a genocide or ethnic cleansing taking place. I'm lost for words, Yusuf. I really am.
Yeah. The point is, every single major human rights organization, the United Nations, the Human Rights Watch, Israeli human rights organizations like B'Tselem have made the point that in all these killings, there's the aspect of command responsibility. So these are not aberrant soldiers. They are operating under the principle of command authorities. Now, for example, the issue that I wanted to ask Anam on this particular point. And I wanted to ask, are you saying that when Israel has given these evacuation orders, you see the evacuation, do these evacuation orders meet international humanitarian law? Because if they don't meet international humanitarian law, then they would amount to ethnic cleansing and forced displacement. So do they meet international humanitarian law?
I think you can make that argument.
There's not an argument. It's just a fact. It's either they have or they have not.
Look,
have they met international humanitarian law? Have they not?
Here's why I'm a fish out of water, right? Because if it was up to me, we would end this war today, and we would not have this problem of evacuation orders and corridors. And something radical I would suggest to both of you is that, and you guys rejected it before, but this is a statistic that's not on the 150-page reports that you're reading. But the thing is, 71% of the Israeli public today would back an agreement where you give up the hostages and you have a ceasefire. I know you're saying that's a red herring, and you've always said that, but I would radically suggest to you, brother, that this is what all this is about. This 60% of Gaza was destroyed the last time I was on. I'm reading your thing saying 90% of Gaza is totally smashed now.
It's increasing. Well,
I don't enjoy this, but I would have ended
the
war
last time I was on. Flood. But you see, Anam, you say you don't enjoy this like many people. This is not a tragedy. It's not a flood.
It's not a slow motion car accident we've been watching for 60 years.
What you are seeing in Gaza, it's not tragic. People say, this is a tragedy. I almost slapped a guy who said it's a tragedy. It's not tragedy. Basically, a tragedy is when there's a flood, there's a disaster, there's a volcano, there's an earthquake, there's clear-cut murder. Now, it comes to my main question. Would what Israel does fulfill or meet the criteria in international humanitarian law? Have they met in their evacuations? Because if they haven't met it,
okay, let me justify it, right? So you know how they killed that guy, he's dead now, right? He was alive the last time we were on. I think he was killed the next day or something. The guy in charge of Hamas,
Mohammed Sinwar, you mean?
Yeah, Sinwar. Thank you, Yahya Sinwar. So when they killed him, right? How did they? He was hiding in the tunnels. They were bombing the buildings around him. They were bombing.
He wasn't hiding in the tunnels.
He wasn't in the tunnels. He wasn't in the tunnels.
He was not in the tunnels. They have a video of his wife with a Gucci handbag going inside the tunnels. So
he was not in the picture of his wife, but he wasn't in the tunnels. He was in that apartment. You saw him there until his last.
He was nowhere in tunnels.
They were playing whack-a-mole.
In fact, they are saying that his death basically came as a kind of a vindication that he was not a coward. He died fighting.
He was heading towards Rafah
to run. No, but the point is he was not in the tunnel. He was in an apartment. Like a rat. Not in tunnels. But this takes me again away from the question. My question was,
so my thing is though,
Israel's
Yusuf,
buildings.
He has to answer the question.
I really want to take that statement. I want him to take that statement back that he was running like a rat.
No, I don't.
I find that very, very offensive. To be honest,
2 million people are under siege because of the decisions he took.
I'm sorry.
No, I will take it back though.
Okay. Yusuf. He's saying this particular Yahya Sinwar, he's the head of Hamas, right? He can blame everything for Yahya Sinwar, but he can't blame the hierarchy of the Israeli government for the soldiers killing innocent women and children. The contradiction in that, Anam, is clear for everybody to see. You're willing to blame Yahya Sinwar, but you're not willing to blame the heads of the Israeli government. You're saying, the soldiers are not really being told what to do and so forth. That's the hypocrisy and the double standards right there, Anam. And I really want you to come
Netanyahu, sure. He does have that blood. I mean, this operation is out of control. But what I'm saying is, though, brothers, let me give you some.
But to answer the question, does Israel's forced evacuation meet the criteria of international humanitarian law? Yes or no?
They're playing the whack-a-mole with the Hamas leadership.
Does it meet?
If they didn't evacuate northern Gaza, yes, they would have been killing.
No, what do you think? What do you think? Does the force? Okay, because it puts an end to the debate.
It fulfills the criteria that it's a military requirement. Yeah.
Okay, if that's what you are saying, then the Human Rights Watch report has made the point that Israeli authorities have not only issued evacuation orders that have been unclear, inconsistent, contradictory, and impossible to comply with an allocated time, but it also regularly failed to provide destination or routes of travel that were safe. For these reasons, Israel's evacuations failed to meet the criteria in international humanitarian law that would bring the displacement of Palestinians in Gaza within the lawful evacuation exemption for civilian security. By extension, that would make it ethnic cleansing because you failed to fulfill that particular criteria. And that's just a small aspect
forcible
pertaining
transfer.
to that. Look at the map. Look at the map. Forcible transfer is when you force people to move out of a particular area.
And by the way, sorry, the second part of that is until the hostilities are done. The hostilities are still ongoing.
Well, the hostilities are supposedly they got
still
people
military need to whatever they're doing in Gaza.
Okay, so here's a map.
Like
Look at the map.
Today,
this is March 31. Look at the map. I just want to go through this map with you. So if you go through the map, this is basically an extension of the.
I will give you those evacuation orders were impossible to comply with. Let me concede
they were impossible. So if they're impossible to comply with, yes, and if you kill people in the safe zone that they go to
in like a 26-kilometer thing.
But if you kill if you send people to a safe zone and you bomb that safe zone, that means your aim is not to basically fulfill. Well, if you take people and you send them to a safe zone and then you bomb the safe zone, that basically means by extension that your aim is not to fulfill international humanitarian law. So when you basically forcibly remove someone, look at the reality. The reality is not that you have to have an occupation for it to fulfill the definition of ethnic cleansing. Ethnic cleansing doesn't mean an area has to be now reoccupied by another people. You can simply remove people from the land, rid people from the land, eliminate people from the land without settling and keeping it a totally barren, desert-like place. That is ethnic cleansing. So in Serbia, for example, where there was viewed as ethnic cleansing, Bosnians still stay in those particular areas now. Some 30 years later, Bosnians are there, but we still make the argument that at that point in time, there was ethnic cleansing. So ethnic cleansing is not conditional as to whether 5 years, 10 years, or in Gaza's situation, 80 years from now, people will possibly be able to relocate. Ethnic cleansing is premised on the principle and the particular fact of the matter, as mentioned here, that number one, there has to be a forcible removement. And number two, that the criteria is not fulfilled, where, for example, the displaced persons return to their home is not able to be facilitated at the end of the hostilities. That's a practical impossibility. Or that safeguards are in place where the civilians are forced to flee from their particular homes or removed from their homes, or that you create conditions where people have to move. So in Israel's case, in the genocide, they've not just created conditions where people have to move, like in the first Nakba, they forcibly moved them. They've evacuated them on the pretext that, look, there's a security, military imperative. But they haven't been able to show the military imperative by qualifying that, look, here's a military imperative that existed. This is what the Human Rights Watch report. And number two, when they haven't ensured that the evacuation is temporary. And number three, when they've facilitated the displaced person's removal, they've bombed them at the safe zone and ensured that they cannot now come back. 80 years from now, if you come back. So, I mean, what you see in Gaza is worse. You were willing to concede that in Serbia and Bosnia and Herzegovina, there was ethnic cleansing, even though the situation in Gaza is worse than what was happening in Bosnia, as bad as it was back then. But in Bosnia, in those Serb villages, in 2024, if you go to Serbia, if you go to Bosnia and Herzegovina, if you go to what was the former Yugoslavia, you see Bosnians present. But nobody's going to make the argument that, look, there was no ethnic cleansing and there was no genocide there, even though only one massacre was designated a genocide, the massacre at Srebrenica. In Gaza, the situation is tenfold. And when you have the former Israeli defense minister and Netanyahu confirming that, how are you so... I'm trying to understand your mindset, Anam. What's motivating you to take this obscene position that you are taking? I just cannot understand your mind.
Yeah. So I gave you guys that statistic before. 71% of the Israeli public would like a ceasefire. That's what I'm saying, that we need to approach them. But
but the point I raised, do you agree the point I raised? We understand the other. Do you agree? That's a side issue.
Yeah. So let me offer you a slight correction, though, because you were talking about the Bosnia war, right? I'm trying to say that maybe even 30 years later, there's villages that used to be Muslim like 40 years ago. And now the only people, because they killed all the men, right? And they raped all the women. and there's no more Muslims living in that place anymore, and it's only going to be an Orthodox village. And by the way, it's not. In fact, I did bring it up. If you know that war, everybody did a little ethnic cleansing. Bosnians kicked out the Serbs in some villages. The Croats kicked out the Serbians in some villages. It wasn't just the Serbs. They were just, heinous about it. But what I'm saying is, though, so I feel like maybe you missed that point, is that what you would need to do is, because that's what we called ethnic cleansing growing up. Another example, like I told you, I discussed this at length. After World War II, there was a population transfer, which is basically what ethnic cleansing would be in my experience. My knowledge of the concept is that all the Germans had to leave Czechoslovakia. All the Germans had to leave Poland. All the Germans had to leave France after World War I. And so that is what ethnic cleansing would be. In India, for example, the Muslims, they didn't have to leave, but basically, if you can slowly, and by the way, let me give you, you can slowly remove people. You can gradually remove people. You can intimidate people. You don't have to kill and rape them all. You can do it.
I get all these analogies. Do you respect international law and international instruments?
Let me. I will say, but see, those are ideals, right? My thing is.
No. It's an important point. Why I'm asking you this question, because 2 months ago, when you came on the stream, you were praising the International Court of Justice, and I raised some concerns about international law being an imperial tool.
You asked that question actually. Yeah,
I qualified that, but then you defended it. You took a position where you defended it.
I talked about the wall.
So my question is, these international instruments that basically guide or are the arbiters over us. Do you respect them?
They're supremely important.
All right. So if they're supremely important, my next question is why is it, from an individual point of view, none of us are researchers as such. We haven't dealt with original research in the sense of being on the ground and taking information. We get and we sharing information. But I'm saying, my question then to you is, why is it then that you are rejecting reports which are confirming ethnic cleansing when they come from Human Rights Watch, B'Tselem, the United Nations Special Rapporteur for the Occupied Palestine, the United Nations itself, and indeed international law, which is confirming that ethnic cleansing, leave aside genocide, that's another issue which we believe there's genocide, but that is confirming now that ethnic cleansing is taking place, and it's vindicated by the own enemies, by the enemies of peace, such as the former defense minister, because the defense minister was part of Operation Cast-Lead and Operation Protective Edge in 2014. So he would have been part and parcel of the war crimes. But for him to say that the situation amounts to ethnic cleansing means how bad the situation really is for him to make such a concession. Someone like him. My argument and question to you is, on what basis, when you say that these are supremely important, yet you are rejecting a report from Human Rights Watch? It's not even Al Jazeera. It's not an opinion piece by a journalist. It's not by John Pilger or Robert Fisk, great journalists, late, who are past us. They're no longer here. It's not an opinion piece by an editor of a newspaper column. It's a scientific document which is documented by an international legal outfit backed by the United Nations and supported and substantiated in copious annexures amounting to more than 500 pages. What do you bring to the table? What do you bring to the table to rebut that, to refute that? I mean, I don't see anything being brought by you. This is the point.
No, brother, not even joking, right? I just want to say I really admire you and your passionate defense and your eloquence, and even you, by the way, Brother Muhammad. I like the way you frame your questions, and it hurts me when you say, you're annoyed with me sometimes, or you too, I really, you guys put on a good show, very entertaining, very good content, very good presentation of facts. Let me answer your question though, right? But okay. So, brother, the thing is, these are amazing things. After World War II, we went through humanity, as a people. We saw heinous things in World War II, and we went through post-colonialism, and all the former colonial countries learned how to stand on their own 2 feet, So it's we're still living in this post-World War II, and I really love history, so it's actually post World War I, actually, which with the failures of World War II and World War I, the borders of the Sykes-Picot Agreement, where this is all we're looking at, So I mean, yes, when you show me rubble in Gaza, I'm really thinking about how we got here, because we were talking about Tom Segev's books and all that. But let me answer your question, okay? What basis do I sit across the Netanyahu's former defense chief and tell him that he's wrong on ethnic cleansing and genocide, right?
Forget that. What about Oxfam? Do you view Oxfam as something?
Let me answer your question. It's the same thing. It's the same, because you're saying ICC, ICJ. I was defending them earlier. You have a very passionate defense. I was praising you. So listen, brother. Watching all these institutions. We live in this post World War II world, right? But the thing is, though, if we followed everything UN Security Council, the General Assembly, and even better ICC, ICJ, right, and The Hague and post Nuremberg, all these things we had to develop. It took us 5,000-6,000 years in history to develop these institutions, right? But here's my problem, right? Here's where I would push back, because, like I said, I had to clap because I wasn't being facetious, maybe a little over dramatic, but that wasn't a false clapping, amazing thesis.
I accept that. But whilst you respond, can you also look at the screen, because this is published yesterday? Can you? This is also just vindicating the position. This is from Oxfam.
So I mean, brother, I will say, let me push back against this since you're putting this on the screen. My thing is, right, we're looking down on Israel. Egypt has a border, and I don't see anyone saying Egypt needs to open up the border and let the food in. So I see this as tragic. I know you told me not to use the word, but let's talk about.
They're blocking the border. Israel's blocking the Egyptian border. They're not allowing the food in from Egypt. You're aware of that?
No, Egypt says they are not going to participate with the border that's not run by the PA or Hamas.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Why should then? And Israel's preventing Egypt from allowing food in.
Egypt is a Muslim country. They have an obligation to let food in for 2 million people. If you want to say Israel's a satanic state, I don't have a problem with that. But as a Muslim country, you should be shipping the food in mass. But anyway, let me not do what is it called? Turn the tables, or what aboutism? I don't mean to do a facetious. Yeah, I don't mean to do a facetious argument. Okay, but I'm just saying though. But what I'm saying, here's my thing, right? Those institutions, ICJ, ICC, and The Hague, and post Nuremberg tribunals, right? Basically, you've outlawed war. Okay. And I would applaud, like, we should outlaw war. There's no reason for one country to invade another country. But having said that, right, I mean, I am a student of history, and I don't know, I keep telling people my age, but I'm almost 30 years old. But I've, like, when you study Islamic history, medieval history, ancient history, war is a fact of human life. So you can say war is outlawed. My only thing is, war itself is a crime. If we stop this war today, we can start rebuilding, putting Palestinians back into their homes. And my radical thing is,
how do we do that? How do we do that?
It would be.
Can you do that?
Really? All you have to do that? I really think.
I'm laughing, but it's actually a horror story.
If they gave up 100 hostages, the war would have been over 6 months ago.
But they did. They offered to give in December. In December, they offered. If you recall, there was a period. There was where about
transferred, and then the rest of it was we weren't at the negotiation table.
But they offered the release of. In fact, the first week, they offered the release of the hostages, and they wanted to negotiate the release of the Palestinian prisoners in the dungeons. It was refused point blank by Netanyahu.
It's about right. That's
and then in December, they did release.
People. Yeah.
Well, besides that, 15,000. Not sitting at 15,000 because there've been more arrests, but they did offer in and if you look at the ceasefire on multiple occasions, we discussed it in the last stream, which we had a nutcase who was denying it, where Netanyahu was in fact, in principle, stated he agreed to the ceasefire, and Hamas had agreed to the ceasefire, and Biden agreed to the ceasefire, and they agreed to the American terms and conditions. And then at the last minute, Netanyahu turned around. So at every step, Hamas is coming to the party and agreeing to the ceasefire, and the Israelis are not.
No,
So
they
every
both
opportunity,
sabotage those
Israel are changing the
negotiations.
goalpost, just like they did at Oslo.
No.
Just like they did at Oslo, they're changing the goalpost. So
Yeah,
I'm
first of
saying
all,
that it's
news
no
reports.
longer hostages, because the hostage families are saying that Netanyahu, by engaging, and by the Israeli government, firstly, they've killed their own hostages on October 7th. Then they killed their own hostages in cold blood, directly shooting them dead. Then they've raised the point that in bombing Gaza, there's an indiscriminate, wanton lack of disregard for the Israeli soldiers for the hostages, on the basis that when they bomb them with these 5,000-pound bombs or ton bombs, the hostages in all probably will be blown up and died. So it's no longer about hostages. This war is not genocide. It's not about hostages. It's got nothing to do with hostages.
Yusuf, you mentioned the former defense minister mentioned two other places that he feels have been ethnically cleansed, and he mentioned the Jabalia camp. Can you recall what his statement was regarding that particular camp?
Okay,
some breaking news happening right now from Jabalia camp.
Let me just try and find it, because you brought this to my attention before. So, and I'm just hanging there. So you're talking about Moshe Yalon. Here we are. I just want to bring this. So this is the article here. I'll just give you the exact quotation. Let me share the screen here. I think it was not here. Here's the screen. Where are we? Here we are. This is the article that I pointed out from the Turkish newspaper. Ethnic cleansing in Northern Gaza, former Israeli defense minister. His actual quotation is, Yalon emphasized that Israeli army. Then did I hear you correctly? He says ethnic cleansing in Northern Gaza. Do you think we're on the path? Yalon responded, why on the path? What is happening there? Beit Lahia no longer exists. Beit Hanun no longer exists. And now they are working on Jabalia. The Israeli army, are cleansing the Arabs. This is the exact word.
Just now, Israel forces have destroyed a 6-story block, and within the 6-story blocks there were many Palestinians staying and shouted in that imagine a 6-story block, ladies and gentlemen, being demolished by a 2,000-pound bomb, collapsing now in that particular camp right now. So his words are very, very true, and they are echoing right now.
And look at this, and I hope Anam is here, but look at this here. This is basically, sorry, I want to just change this here. I want to present something for you before you comment, Anam. This is on Jabalia. This is on the 26th of November. What is also remarkable here, if you can share, this is the screen here. Israelis use Palestinian children as human shields in Jabal. I mean, you couldn't make this up. It's like every accusation is a confession. November 26th, Israeli armed forces have forced Palestinian children to act as human shields during the siege on Jabalia refugee camp in northern, placing them in direct harm's way amid live fire and tank shelling. Defense for children on October 15th, Israeli tanks firing indiscriminately, injuring 7 Palestinians. In multiple documented cases, Israeli soldiers detained children as young as 6 years old, using them and other Palestinian civilians to shield advancing military forces. These tactics not only endanger the life of children, but constitute an egregious violation of international humanitarian law. Israeli forces' use of Palestinian human shields is a deliberate and unlawful act, one that places lives in extreme danger and causes unimaginable trauma. I mean, even Hamas doesn't do this. You know, the allegation against Hamas is that they're using human shields, but they do it indirectly. In other words, they have the allegation that they have a tunnel underneath a hospital, so that's human shields, or that they put they fire out of civilian areas where there's civilians. That's how so the allegations against Hamas by Israel, which has now been debunked as false, is that they use Palestinians as human shields, but indirectly, which is now also false. Now we've got evidence just a few days ago that Israel is directly using Palestinian children as human shields. I mean, we've seen the reports. They put them in tractors and tracks, or they tied them up and they send them into tunnels in the front line and so on. Here, October 4th, 15th, Mohammed Zaini's wife, at 9 a.m., Israeli tanks surrounded. Mohammed attempted to flee with his children raising a white flag. However, Israeli soldiers intercepted the family, detaining them with several others and positioning them in front of the tank that continued to fire shells over their head. Muhammad and his children were held in this position for 5 hours, with soldiers ignoring his pleas to protect his terrified children. After hours of intense fear, Israeli forces ordered the family to abandon their belongings and walk south. I mean, what is that if not ethnic cleansing? Israeli tanks again circled the camp, where another 3 children, 6-4, as Israeli forces, Islam's wife raised a white flag and attempted to flee with the children. When they neared a checkpoint, Israeli soldiers ordered them via loudspeakers to discard their belongings in a pit. Israeli forces then separated the men from the woman holding Islam's children in front of them. We are going to die. A soldier continued firing, undeterred by the visible child's horror. And then a third incident, Israeli bombed a house of Mahmoud Nassar and his family, raised a white flag, attempted to escape with other children, soldiers detaining them, ordering the men, women, children, elder siblings to walk in front of advanced military vehicles which were shelling nearby buildings. What is that if not direct human shield? So, I mean, every accusation is a confession. I mean, how much is enough? I mean, we've never seen this in recent modern day warfare. You talk about the Gulf War. You talk about the war in Afghanistan. I mean, these are all crimes, and war crimes were committed. We've never even seen crimes. I mean, look at the conclusion. Despite international prohibition, Israeli forces have repeatedly used Palestinian children as human shields in military operations across occupied territory, perpetuating a cycle of trauma and violence for which there's been no accountability. It's like an inversion of reality, and yet they make the allegations against Hamas, and even they do that badly. But how much is enough? I mean, when is enough enough? I've never seen anything documented like this. We now, and some journalists are saying that can be open to debate, that what we are seeing now is reaching, or at least close to reaching, the level of brutality that you saw in the killing fields of Cambodia under Pol Pot. I mean, and
Okay,
that is
Yusuf,
that
I really want Anam to respond, because there is a lot there for him to deal with, and I really want to give him maybe a minute and a half just to respond without any interruptions, please.
Okay.
Anam, go ahead. I know there was a lot there, so if you need to go into depth, I'll give you some extra few seconds. Go ahead.
Obviously, the only thing I could really say is I would disagree that Hamas is not using Palestinians as human shields. First of all, well, aside from the fact that instead of they're able to smuggle in concrete and they use it to build tunnels instead of building like more housing and creating an economy for the people there. But we know that the head of the UNRWA had the Twitter account that was openly supporting Hamas. So they were redirecting the funds meant for schools and other things and technologies used for that for their military operations. That's the only, other than that, of course, and I hinted at this before. Look, you
haven't commented on what I presented to you.
No, I have
Yusuf,
not.
Yusuf, please,
I would say
1 minute.
No, he's right. I mean, you guys are.
I know. I'm hoping that you hit the topic towards the end.
The idea is that war itself is a crime, brother. I don't think you said. I would even push back. You haven't read about this in the Gulf War. I've read some horrific accounts about U.S. soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan and shooting people's dogs and things like that. And it's when you go do.
Well, Yusuf, Adam, you know what really baffles me when Yusuf say kids are being killed and shot at, and then you mentioned in Iraq is a terrible situation where a dog was shot at. What the hell are you on about? And
you know what I'm saying though? I've read horrific accounts where look, troops patrolling. They are like,
is that the worst terrible thing you've read and heard about somebody's dog getting shot?
There's more graphic stuff we could go into, but in fact, the dog was shot in the mouth and it continued yelping. So it was a horrific thing for a night raid.
Yusuf, brother, I am really struggling with Anam right now.
I don't know.
There are children.
We've got Hassan on. We've got Hassan as well. Maybe Hassan can also engage with Anam if he wants to.
Iraq,
Hassan,
Iraq was a nightmare for Sunnis and Shia.
Well, fair enough. But we've got Hassan on. I don't know if you've engaged with Anam before, but Hassan, are you there? Because I need to leave shortly. Is Hassan on?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum.
Anything you want to say? Welcome, brother. Assalamu alaikum.
Yes, Anam, before I get into what I originally came here to discuss, I mean, let's be honest. I agree with Brother Muhammad and Brother Yusuf here. I mean, when you talk about a dog being shot in the mouth, and then and within this context, I mean, we have videos and pictures of children, under rubble, burnt alive, shot in the head, decapitated.
All right. I mean, I don't. I try not to bore people with my superfluous knowledge of history, right? So Fallujah would be the best parallel. It was a major city occupied by ISIS, and the U.S. Marines, they lost about 200, 250 people there. It was the largest combat operation or loss of life for the Marines since Okinawa, Japan. So basically, when you fight urban warfare, you're going to have this level of destruction. So yes,
But deliberate. I mean, the point, Anam, again, we accept that. We accept Fallujah was a nightmare. We're talking about now, it's no longer indiscriminate bombing, which is just a form of negligence, which is a crime and murder by any sense. We're talking about deliberately targeting and shooting children in the head under the mandate and document of, under the auspices of command responsibility, directly being killed. So it's deliberate murder. It's no longer just bombing with the pretext that they could use the excuse of Hamas. It's deliberately killing people, shooting children in the head, shooting them in the chest. So it's deliberately targeting. These are not aberrant rogue soldiers. A systematic pattern by command responsibility, which can be traced up at the highest level to the military officials themselves and the Israeli authorities and the administrative members of the Knesset. In fact, Netanyahu, the hostage families were questioning Netanyahu on that, because they from their perspective, of course, their only concern is their hostages. But they were questioning him that by his actions, he's intentionally now killing his own people, intentionally, like they did on October 7th. But my point is, leave that all aside. This is deliberate murder. I mean, how are you finding excuses for this? I'm just trying to, let's, for the sake of argument, I give you Hamas did something bad.
Let me concede.
Why is it?
This level of Israeli aggression is unprecedented of 60 years of history of the state of Israel.
But if that's the case, if you admit that and you're good, you sound like a good guy. You sound like a really good guy. And if you admit that and acknowledge that,
I try.
Why then are you attempting to manufacture a situation which excludes any form of moral agency by Israel? Why are you attempting to make all forms of justifications for their criminal actions?
Yeah, because I feel like we are at this point.
So there's a because of that. Why are you making up? I mean, I understand the Muslim world is in a mess.
Yeah,
I talk about it all the time for several years.
Failed these people. We as an ummah have failed these people. We failed to arrive in a peace deal with this state. And they were ready, something. This is my thesis, right? Actually, the Israeli public was willing to vote in liberal governments when they thought there was a chance of peace, and when they thought there was no chance of peace, they voted in right-wing governments. And even now, the only reason they remain Netanyahu has been in power is not because of a majority vote; it's because of parliamentary. Some parties don't make the ballot and stuff. But that's it.
What happened after Yitzhak Rabin? We had a liberal government in Israel.
We as an ummah have failed because we think that Israel is going to go away one day. And that's the position we were holding out for. But the actual position should have been to come to an agreement and a compromise with Israel, where they give up the West Bank in return for peace, and they gave up Sinai in return for peace with Egypt. They would have given up West Bank,
but they haven't given up the West Bank. They haven't given up the West Bank.
They would have.
No, they would not have, because after Oslo.
Remember, I had to correct you. You accident. Maybe it was a slip, but Oslo was signed and Camp David was rejected. And I think accepting Camp David, we would have avoided this place where 90% of Gaza is like, how are we going to rebuild this? Because all the money in the world can't rebuild this right now. After
the Accords, the settlements increased. The settlements expanded. That's how you get the suicide bombings that happen. So, but my point again is that it just takes me to this entire thing. My question is, why are you saying? I mean, firstly, let me ask you this question.
No, the suicide bombings were after the Oslo Accord.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you such a question, because you're saying Israel should exist. Did Nazi Germany have a right to exist?
See, brother, the thing is, though, here's the thing.
Leave aside Nazi Germany. Did apartheid South Africa have a right to exist?
And let me correct you on that also. I brought it up to you before. Apartheid South Africa had enshrined in its constitution a majority white parliament. majority. It had to be like 60 whites, 15 blacks, and 15 Indians. That's what the thing was.
But
So
Israel
no.
doesn't have a constitution. You are aware of that.
Basic
Israel
law.
has no
The
constitution.
basic law functions as a constitution, but you're dodging the point.
Which states
if
similar to
if labor and the spin-off, that Sharon came up with, and then the Arab parties formed a coalition, and all the Arabs came to vote, they would have been able to remove Netanyahu from power 8 years ago. We would not be seeing the tornado of a human rights crime that we're watching today.
So let me just correct you on 2 points. South Africa had no constitution under apartheid. There was no constitution. It was only after 1994 that there was a constitution. And entrenched in apartheid South Africa was supremacy of the whites. However, even that supremacy is nowhere close to the supremacy of Jewish supremacy in Israel. According to Adala and B'Tselem, there are more than 20 such statutes that specifically provide unequal rights and obligations based on what Israelis define as an ethnic nationality inside Israel itself. So leaving aside the West Bank and Gaza, which we know that they are discriminated. So my question is, if you, on the one hand, so let me ask you again the question, do you believe that apartheid South Africa had the right to exist?
Okay, so
yes or no?
A fact check. There was a South African Constitution of 1983, which gave limited political voice to the country's color.
There was not a constitution as such. If you study the background and the history, those were just laws which retrospectively are called constitution, but it's not a kind of a fully fledged constitution, which was, we had the interim constitution in 96 and of course the final constitution in 1996. You can't call that a constitution, what was there in 1983. But my point is, leaving aside the legal jargon, but leaving aside the legal jargon, the laws were not the laws, for example, the pass laws and the bylaws, they were not found in the 1983 act that you're basically referring to. There were other legislations that entrenched inherent discrimination. I'm saying the same thing is applicable at a more pernicious level in Israeli society. So my question to you is, what do you say about that? What do you say about... So my question again to you is, do you believe that apartheid, forget the laws, do you believe that apartheid South Africa should have existed? Yes or no?
No, I don't believe in a country that says that the minority of people should rule. No.
So why should apartheid Israel then exist?
So that's a fair question. Maybe I'll come back. But let me concede to you that.
Let me give you something. Let me give you something.
Just because I think white Europeans.
You can come back. You can come back. But I want when you go back, I want to give you some homework.
6 million Jews. So that's why they can have.
There's the admissions committee's law. Admissions committee's law. And this is within Israel now. So they talk about Israeli Arabs. Israeli Arabs can become judges. They're in the Knesset. I don't know if you saw where they kicked him out just about last week. They beat him up, that politician. But be that as it may, there's the admissions committee's law in Israel, within Israel, which states that there are Jews-only communities who are assigned state land, but Arabs are basically excluded on the pretext that they're not fitting within the actual social fabric. Then you have something similar to South Africa, the loyalty oath law, which states and specifically forces Palestinians and other non-Jewish citizens like the Druze and so on to swear an allegiance to Israel solely as a Jewish and democratic state, thereby turning Arabs into second-class citizens. So, for example, Arab Israelis, I want to leave you on this point. Arab Israelis, for example, who are citizens in Israel, they're not allowed to live in Israel with their Palestinian spouses from the West Bank. But more than that, the Israeli settlers can go to the West Bank and expand even in Area C. Arab Israelis who are Palestinians and may have relatives in the West Bank cannot even go there. Jewish settlements based on state land within Israel itself do not admit Arab Israeli citizens to live there. Settlers are not allowed to sell land to Arab Israeli citizens. So in other words, even in the West Bank, they can't sell the land to Arab Israeli citizens, and even within parts of Israel. And then you have a situation that up until 1966, which you may not know, that the Arab Israeli citizens were living under the emergency laws governing them, which are separate to the laws governing the Israelis. They're only given about 3% of the land, despite the fact that they're 8.4 million people. And the fact that they are citizens, and it's neither here nor there, because blacks were citizens. In fact, blacks had more rights than Palestinians and Israeli Arabs at this particular point in time.
I'm glad you brought that up. But the fact that they're citizens means they can vote, and the fact that they can decide the prime minister means if the Arabs in Israel turned out, all 20% of them, they would have defeated Netanyahu, and even Netanyahu in 1996 would have lost. That man would have never become prime minister if the Arabs voted. And that's why it's not like South Africa. And you keep missing that point that, you know, and there was a, you know, that the South Africa's tricameral legislature never allowed blacks to rule or be the swing vote in a parliamentary democracy. And
no, but they allow blacks, for example, to control their own Bantustan lands. For example,
but what I'm saying, actual representation in the national legislature is a huge deal, and this is why it's not an apartheid.
But here's the point: they operated within the tricameral parliament. But for example, we had this famous Indian Amichan Rajbansi. He was able to engage the apartheid government. They allowed this engagement. You had Mangosuthu Buthelezi, the Zulu. That's why we deemed them as sellouts. These people were sellouts because they were there to essentially entrench.
You can change
but that's the same argument that South Africa made. You see the argument you are making now. But the argument you are making, Anam, is the same argument that the South African apartheid government made in relation to the blacks. They stated that, look, they give blacks equal rights. They even give them the fact that they can engage with the political establishment at a political level. And they give them their own. They give them their own autonomy. For example, the Lucas Mangope of Bophutha Tswana, he had millions of rands at his disposal. I mean, this was during the heights of apartheid. The Zulu King,
I didn't know about the Zulu King. That's pretty
benefited.
Wild.
Mangosuthu Buthelezi, who was a minister of the Zulu King, benefited highly. That's why they call them, those who were part of the struggle, call them the sellouts, because essentially they entrenched the dominant status quo, but they were given some degree of autonomy. Now I'm saying within Israeli society, the Israeli Arabs, you have a situation where at a limited level, there's some form of autonomy, but in a general sense, when it comes to the Israeli Arabs, there's inherent discrimination, which is not just practically applied, but also
I'm going to join you in that criticism. I'm going to join you in that criticism. So I'm not pushing back against that. The whole.
So then it's an apartheid state.
No, but because, here's the thing, like you said, well, anyway, I'll come back next time. I do want to be respectful of your time. Sorry, Brother Hassan, we couldn't get to your actual question.
The one thing I'd just like to talk to you about with regards to this topic. Are you aware of an individual called Avraham Stern? Have you ever heard of him?
No, I don't believe so.
Stern gang.
It's a very common. Those are both very common names. I'm sure there's like 1,000,001 people with the name Abraham Stern. But go ahead.
No. This man is particularly special because this man, Avraham Stern, or Stern, however you want to, pronounce his name. He was a member not just of the Haganah and the Irgun. He was also the founder.
Militant faction.
He was the founder of Lehi. He was the founder of Lehi.
Yeah.
And here's the part that I'm trying to explain to you here. That when these parties were dissolved, both his sons became media consultants and journalists in Israel. All right. His party member who was a member of the Lehi, as well as a member of Irgun, became the prime minister of Israel in 1983.
Menachem Begin, very well aware.
Right. Yitzhak Shamir. I'm talking about Yitzhak Shamir.
You know the history. And
sorry.
You know the history that they engage in acts of terror, brutality, horror, mass rape. So you know that history. So
here's the thing, though. They were a fringe, and then somehow they seized power. And part of that seizure of power was actually, a lot of the 1981 stuff. When they saw Israel gave up the Sinai, the radical right-wing religious Jews in Israel freaked out. The ones who want to settle the Judea and Samaria. So yes, there is a fringe group in Israel that basically became the thing.
So
But
the
I think
gangster became the state. The gangster became the
okay,
state.
here's
That's
the thing. Yes, but here's the thing: the majority of Israel is not them, and we could have engaged with that segment of Israeli society.
Uh,
But here we're too busy comparing them to South Africa when we could actually
no, no,
engage
no,
with
no,
them
no, 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 no,
and
no,
sign
no,
an
no,
agreement.
no. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to cut you off here. I'm really sorry. I'm gonna have to cut you off here, Adam, because when you say that they are not the majority, that's a problem. You know why? Because as much as people want to make a differentiation between Zionism and Judaism, Zionism at its core is based off of Jewish theology. All right. While I was at FIU, I had the pleasure as well as displeasure of having to study some of some of the aspects of the Tanakh and the Talmud. All right, with
I mean,
regards
look,
to
they love that land the way we love Mecca and Medina, right? So I don't see the difference.
no, 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 no. That's not the Okay, yeah, no, that's not the point. That is so far off from the point. The point is the idea in their heads, the mentality that is almost a shared mentality here. It's a herd mentality of supremacy for the Jewish people, and well, not eradication, but subjugation, as well as mass murder for everyone else, whether it's the Midianites, whether it's the Amalekites, who, by the way, I mean, if you go into to the history of the Amalekites, they are actually descended from the ancestor of the Jews themselves,
Okay, so here,
as are the
let me push back
Midianites.
against you, brother.
Yeah.
I see your thesis. You know, the Old Testament calls for the genocide, basically. So why do 1 million Arabs in Israel have citizenship if they are just trying to wipe them out? And why
Citizenship,
can they all and they can all vote for prime
like I
minister,
said,
and we could have
citizenship means nothing.
brother,
Citizenship. Sorry,
I'm
man.
saying we could bring another prime minister tomorrow. If you know what I'm saying,
Anam,
if all the you know, like I'm from, you know, if all the Desis in Atlanta turned out right, if all the South Asians in Atlanta turned out, Georgia would have gone blue, you know. But people choose not to turn out. You know,
okay.
are you
I'm a
gonna say
Desi
like
myself. I'm a
Desis like
Desi
second class
myself. So
citizens in
let's.
Georgia just because it's Republican? We can vote. You have the power to choose the president. That's immense. I don't think you can understand. You can understate how powerful it is to be able to have, like, if you own 20% of the Knesset, that's it. There's no way you could ever have a Likud government.
Okay,
In Israel.
so can I address that? Can I address that specific point?
No,
I want
I'm
to
just saying.
address that.
Well, actually, that's a question to Brother
No,
Hassan.
no,
He
no, no,
said
no.
that
But just on
religion
that
calls
point,
for
you
genocide,
said
but if they
no,
would not be interested in making equal citizens, if
okay. So here's your point. You raised a point. You said if you control 20% of the Knesset, because the argument is, and this was one of the issues I was going to address with Brother Muhammad, is that the issue which is raised by Israeli apologists, does not the presence of Palestinians in the Knesset, they can vote, they can have their political parties, they can be judges or so on, that would dispel the notion of apartheid. And I looked up certain facts on that particular point. It's interesting. I want to bring up something for your attention and make a point of this, Anat, because next time you can come and tell me if I'm wrong, and you can fact check me. There is within Israel, in the administrative Knesset, there's laws which curtail freedom of political participation, expression, and association. And this was borne out last week when they kicked out that Arab, I think he was Arab, I don't know if he was Arab or Israeli, but he attacked Netanyahu and they beat him up outside the Knesset. If you look at Amendment 9 to the Basic Law, I've got it before me. I'm going to open it up and maybe I can share the screen. The Knesset and the Law of Political Parties of 1985. It makes it illegal, firstly, at the outset, for any political party to challenge the declaration that Israel is a Jewish state. Meaning, if you want to, for example, make the point that, look, it should be a pluralistic state, should be a multicultural
for all its citizens.
Yeah. So no, yeah, for all citizens, you have to acknowledge the fact that it's fundamentally a Jewish state, primarily for Jews. Then you've got a situation since 2003. You've got two Palestinian parties within the Knesset: the Tal Party and the Balad Party. The main Palestinian parties who are basically demanding that Israel becomes a state for its own citizens, just like many, so-called political parties that were not banned by South Africa during the IFP, for example, the Inkatha Freedom Party participated in the 1994 elections, but they were not in the apartheid era. They were not banned. They were a party for blacks, unlike the ANC were banned in the
I guess they chose
PAC.
not to
The
participate
IFP
in
was there, right? So,
yeah.
so with regards to Tal and Balad Party, they have been. I think there was one occasion they were banned, but they were been repeatedly threatened by banning by the Israeli Central Elections Committee based on these laws. And the point is that many people, and I think it was Richard Goldstone in his Goldstone Commission, that report, which he then, after he was attacked, he relinquished. He pointed out, he was the one that made the point that the Palestinian political participation in the Knesset is identical to of the tricameral system in apartheid South Africa, where the Indian and colored participation was conditional on politicians not challenging the apartheid state in any particular way.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you look at the Israeli,
let
me just finish the point. If you look at the in South Africa, we had the Mixed Marriage Act. In Israel, you have the Israel's citizenship law, which states that Palestinian citizens of Israel who marry Palestinians on the West Bank or Gaza Strip must move there or live apart from their spouse. The Israel lands law, which is passed in March 2011 or 2012, it states that any person or party from selling land or renting property for a period of over 5 years to non-Jews or non-resident citizens of Israel, there's a prevention, and if you do that, that person can be jailed. Similar to South Africa, where if you lent land or sold land within a white residential community to a black, you could be arrested. If you married, for example, you could be arrested. The employment of the Public Service Bill, it's passed in 2009. It ensures that the people who get the best jobs and are those basically who serve within the army first. So, for example, it means that the exemptions in this instance are the Orthodox Jews, because they can still get the best jobs, although they're exempt from the army. But Arab Muslims and Arab Christians who don't basically serve in the army cannot do. And pertaining to vote, you're talking about vote. The residents of East Jerusalem, which is part of Israel, they're not permitted to vote, as they are viewed and categorized as permanent residents and not citizens. So they don't have a right then to stay. Even the Israeli Arabs, under Israeli law, the houses may not be built by the Palestinians in East Jerusalem without permits, and permits are not granted in most cases. The Arab school children, they are forced to celebrate Jewish Israeli history that excludes them, just like the black children had to learn Afrikaans and had to support and the historical version of Jan van Riebeeck and Vasco da Gama and so on and so forth. And also you've got a separate school system. There's a separate school system, and they say that there's a separate school system to preserve the autonomous state of Arabs so that they can grow up in their own particular environment. But that's the same argument that was made by apartheid South Africa, that there needs to be the blackness so that blacks don't lose their cultural identity, and we don't want to be viewed as taking over them. Check Hendrik Verwoerd when he was interviewed in the 60s, exact same point that was made. So whilst there may not be a clear marked segregation of spaces, for example, where you had in South Africa, whites, non-whites, going to this beach, which is for whites, this beach is for non-whites. You don't have that necessarily there in terms of entering one post office and entering another post office. You do have that on the West Bank, though. And then within Israel proper, you have a situation where the Israeli Arabs are controlled by a whole system of laws and practices based on institutional discrimination. So that makes Israel an apartheid state on the West Bank, which is accepted by even someone like Benny Morris. Benny Morris says, he concedes the point, is an Israeli historian, that Israel is an apartheid state on the West Bank. But I'm saying it's not just on the West Bank, even within Israel itself.
I'm going to join you in the criticism, but my only thing is the label, and I'll be brief because I want. But the thing is that, look, in the U.S. they found out that the Farm Bureau was not giving loans to black farmers; it was overwhelmingly white farmers. In the Biden administration, they recently gave loans just to black farmers, and all the Trump voters got mad because they're saying, "Oh wow, they're giving loans only to black people." They're not understanding
affirmative action. That's affirmative action. You talk about something else.
There was a historic injustice that was done to one population that they were trying to remedy. Also, from India, by the way, Modi passed a law saying basically, if you don't have proof of citizenship as a Muslim, we're going to think you're some kind of Rohingya or something. and so they are trying to denationalize their Muslims. So look, let me join you in the criticism. This is a danger that when countries move towards fascism, when parties have to swear a loyalty oath to the state or some demographic character of the state, I will join you in that criticism, but we'll have to talk more about the label of apartheid. That's the only thing I'm pushing back against. I will concede to you the whole building restrictions in East Jerusalem. Israelis can build on state land, but Palestinians will never get a permit to build a toilet in their own home. You know,
is that not discrimination? Is that discrimination?
Okay, but what I'm saying is though, look, the U.S. is treating blacks like dirt for most of the past 100 years. The India is currently treating Muslims like dirt in its current state. There is, being a minority in any country, you have to. There's a great amount of suffering. We can argue for more equity, but we'll have to bring that up next time. But my main thesis though is that anyway.
Okay, but Anna, before you go, one last thought, and I want to ask you a neutral question.
Okay.
Because this is what Professor Yuri Davis asked. If a country legislates discrimination or racism, for example, through acts of parliament or enforces racist behavior upon its citizens by exercising the might of the law, would that be an apartheid state? It's not a trick question. It's a simple question.
It's not a trick question. It is a simple question.
So would that be an apartheid state? It's a simple question. If a state legislates racism through an act of parliament and it enforces racist behavior by exercising the might of law, does that not qualify is that an apartheid state? Yes or no? And did South Africa do that?
Okay, so I would say that state has racist policies,
and that's not apartheid.
No, because that will be Bantustans and all that. So we can talk about that. But
isn't apartheid the forced separation of racial groups based on race, ethnicity, and discrimination?
Now, but here's one thing, brother. I would. This is the only defense I would have, right? Because the character of your question, you'd be.
Why is it a defense? Why is it that
you Mr. Pollard as a prosecutor? But because you're prosecuting the question very well. But my thing is that we have the remedies for this, in that they are able to participate in the democratic structure of their national government. And the only government that's been passing these laws is a right-wing party that's hijacked, and its coalition that's hijacked this democracy. So that is the criticism, that this democracy has been hijacked. I worry about my democracy back home in India. And it's a swing towards fascism that we have to worry about in the U.S. here. So, anyway, so this is the thing, right-wing government.
Which part of India do you come from? Which part of India do you come from?
My parents are from two different places, Maharashtra and Hyderabad. Yeah.
Okay.
Aurangabad.
Well, the point at the end of the day, I'm also from India originally, but I'm not fourth generation. The point is any population.
Countries move towards fascism. That's worrying. Nationalism. That's worrying.
So you're saying it's a government? You're saying it's a present government that it is? You're saying basically it is a group of criminals that has hijacked the state in Israel right now. Is that what you're saying?
See, they have their own experience.
No, but that's what you said now. That's what you're essentially saying. You're saying now.
Brother Hassan brought up the lady of the Stern Gang, and it turned out I did know what the Stern Gang was. So and they, by the money, they were incorporated into the IDF. So his point is correct that this is the component of the state at some point, right? But
So why? My question is, why make it? Is there something? I mean, I'm not saying you paid, but your posturing, your positioning, despite all the facts being shown before you, I mean, it leaves one, and I think to Muhammad as well, and he's a far more softer person than I am, and a far more polite person than me. But it leaves a bitter taste in the mouth, because it's not the question that you don't appear to be confused, you don't appear to be ignorant. No. You appear to be knowledgeable about what's going on. You do know, you have read, you do know what's going on. And so that makes your position all the more, for want of a better word, obscene, right, in a manner of speaking. If you take the position on the basis of ignorance, I can give you the benefit of the doubt. But this is, the situation, and you're even acknowledging the inherent problems within Israeli society, and of course that they could from your perspective, be potentially ethnic cleansing and genocide, and you acknowledge international law. My point is, what's your purpose of coming on? And you want to kind of try and play the idea that you want to be the devil's advocate, but you're actually not the devil's advocate here. You're actually not being the devil's advocate, because the devil's advocate is not supportive of the devil necessarily. You're actually taking a position where you want to be in the devil's camp. And that's what the problem is. You're not the devil's advocate. You actually want to be in the devil's camp. That's what makes your position so confusing. What do you say about that?
Yeah.
That you are from the devil's camp itself. You want to be part of the devil's camp. You don't want to play the devil's advocate. Because the devil's advocate is not the devil. The devil's advocate, I defend criminals. I don't become a criminal. I'm basically representing the devil itself, but that doesn't make me supportive of the devil necessarily. It appears your position is that you want to basically entrench yourself into developing something as an apologetic motif for a state that has become totally indefensible. This is the problem. Don't you see? Don't you? I'm asking you, if you introspect yourself, don't you see that problem? Are you having an internal moral quandary or contradiction within your mind on this particular issue? What is it? What is going on in you?
But believe me, brother, I don't mean to be rhetorical. The moral quandary is that everything we're watching is our failure as an ummah. Everything we're watching.
No, we know that. I don't deny that. I don't deny that the world has failed. I don't deny that.
No, but here's the failure, though, right? Because you saying devil's advocate, and I want to be in the devil's camp. We could have had rapprochement with this so-called devil like a long, long time ago, and instead we chose to see them as the devil, and that's our failure. So that's why if you look at the
history of conciliation, Anthony Loewenstein and a couple of other Israeli writers have pointed out that every time the Palestinians attempted to reach a potential period of peace, for example, when the Palestinian Authority, when the PLO became the PA, and they stated we are now willing to recognize Israel and so on and so forth, when there was going to be a genuine possibility for a potential two-state solution, at every single opportunity, all these academic scholars and the United States government have, and Jimmy Carter himself acknowledged the point some years back in his book, that at every opportunity where there was a potential for peace, Israel jettisoned it because of the fact that they never wanted the Palestinians.
Was Arafat a good partner?
Therefore, thereafter you had the violence coming out. So,
would you say Arafat was a good partner for peace?
Well, Arafat went beyond that. Arafat should have kept up the resistance. He compromised himself. Arafat became a puppet enforcer for the Israeli regime. That's what happened to Arafat, and they killed him in the end. Arafat became, you saying, was he a good partner of peace? He essentially became the enforcer for Israel. He became what they call the consigliere in Godfather terminology for Israel. That's what happened to Arafat. He went to such an extent that he bent over backwards for Israel, and they spat him out and call him a terrorist. He should have not stopped the resistance. Hamas even bent their backwards. You asked me some time back, what's your criticism against Hamas? One of the issues where Hamas got it wrong is that Hamas stated in 2005 they're willing to recognize Israel. If I was the leader of Hamas, I would have said no. In 2017, they stated we are willing to have a two-state solution based on 1967 borders. We're willing to recognize Israel as a state here, provided the settlers move out. Israel rejected it. I rejected the posturing from Hamas because I do not believe that would have been a just solution for the Palestinians. But both Hamas, but more so the Palestinians, the Palestinian Authority, compromised to such an extent that they went backwards. And what these authors like Yuri Davis, there's an interesting book that I would like to email you if you send me your email address and leave it here, which pointed out that what this then did is that it created a precedent in the minds of the Palestinians that whenever there is a potential for negotiation and settlement, Israel jettisons it, and it gives the message, it sends a message that the only way forward is violence, resistance, and armed struggle. Because whenever, for example, there was an attempt to, for example, like in the 80s, in the 70s, when the Palestinian Authority in the 1882 Lebanon War, the PLO was willing to recognize Israel. It already recognized them in principle in 76. And when the United States was about to basically accede to the point that, look, now you've got two mutually equal parties, the PLO and Israel, Israel invaded Lebanon and created the war, and then stated there's a threat. That's why there's a preemptive strike on Lebanon, and they created the havoc and disaster that you see, which then led to the creation of Hezbollah in the 80s.
They were
So I'm saying
infiltrating
that
from
at
Lebanon.
every level, you talk about a compromise. The Palestinians have gone beyond compromise. They're not just compromised, but they become sellouts. They become enforcers. The Palestinian Authority is an enforcer for Israel on the West Bank. That's what it is.
Yeah, brother, but you know,
And
my thing
Hamas,
is, they
wanted
though,
Hamas to
does
be
Nazi Germany have a right to
the
exist?
enforcer.
So in your head,
Why
Israel
do
will
you think
never
they
have a
gave money
right
to
to
Hamas?
exist. You will never have any kind of reproachment attitude, and this is why we fail at peace, because we just
But no state has a right to exist. Anam, no state has a right to exist. States, by their definition, do not have the right to exist. And the point is, it's a pedantic, superfluous statement, because number one, Israel does exist, and a Palestinian state does not exist. So for people to ask the question repeatedly, does Israel have the right to exist? Does Israel have the right to exist? It's a stupid question, because, you know, Francesca Albanese, I don't know if I can play this clip. Did you see the clip? Do you know Francesca Albanese?
UN rapport.
Yeah, the human rights. She was asked this question. About a month or so ago. I just want to play this clip before you leave, because I enjoy you here. I just want
Me too.
I just want to play this clip before you leave. Let this be
It's
the
3
last
on
clip.
1. I feel like a pinata sometimes.
No,
but
there's no 3-on-1. It's just 1-on-1 here. Brother Anam I'm sorry, Brother Hassan and Brother Muhammad have been very polite and kind with you. But just Francesca Albanese, I just want to put this point here. Francesca Albanese, before you go, on Israel having the right. So she was asked, has the right to exist. I just want to see if I can open this to that particular. Shuts down the. Yeah, this is a few minutes. This is about a 58-second thing. I just want to share this. Hold on a second. Hold on. Here we are. I just want to put this. Play this out. I want to share the screen. Where we are. Let me share this. Muhammad, are you there? I just want to share the screen here. Hold on a second. And this will be the last clip for you. And just have a look. She's asked the question, does Israel have the right to exist? Is it on our screen? Yeah. Now, this is her response. Do you believe Israel has a right to exist? This is a remarkable question. This is an interesting answer that she gives. Not an answer I would give, but this is an interesting answer. Listen to this.
Do you believe that Israel has a right to exist?
Israel does exist. Israel is a recognized member of the United Nations. Besides this, there is not such a thing in international law like a right of a state to exist. Does Italy has a right to exist? Italy exists. Now, if tomorrow Italy and France want to merge and become Ita France, fine. This is not up to us. What is enshrined in international law is the right of a people to exist. So the state is there, the state of Israel is there, is protected as a member of the United Nations. Does this justify the erasure of another people? Hell no. Not 75 years ago, not 57 years ago, surely not today. Where is the protection of the Palestinian people from erasure, from annexation, from illegal occupation and apartheid? This is what we need to discuss.
Do you believe?
You see that? So I couldn't say it better in 58 seconds, but that's the UN Special Rapporteur.
That was a good clip.
So that's the point. Yeah, thanks. I'm glad you acknowledge that. So and take care. I will send you some material. I see you've got your email address there, and we'll keep in touch.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers. Have a good day.
Wa alaikum salam. Wa alaikum salam.
I think this is the longest. Yeah, I think this is the longest stream we've done so far.
Yeah, it's a pretty long stream we've had. Yeah, we'll have to bring it to an end. I don't know. I'm feeling constipated after that discussion. But yeah, no. Look, we've had a stream. I'm a bit tired. We've gone on for 3 hours, 13 minutes. Yeah,
we did a stream. I think Hassan was there. I think nearly 6 hours. We did a stream. We had a very nice stream last night. MashaAllah.
Oh, phenomenal, fantastic.
Yeah, so
I think this is the longest stream on the Israeli issue we've done so far. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So I urge the brothers and sisters to like, share, and subscribe to my channel, and of course, Brother Yusuf's channel, the South African Debate Initiative. here it is there. So please go there, subscribe, show some love, some support, and we really need to get this message out. This is one of the channels that before the war started, we started to highlight the plight of the Palestinian people, and throughout our journey, I see the figures on the viewership, especially when we talk about the situation in Palestine and Gaza, they seem to go down. So please, brothers and sisters, I sincerely request that you like, share, and share this stream to your friends and family on Facebook or X, Instagram or WhatsApp. Let's get the figures back up again. Jazakumullah khair. Final words to you, Brother Yusuf, and then Brother Yusuf, and then Brother Hassan, and then we can close the show for today. Jazakumullah.
Let's pray for the Palestinian people. Let's make dua for them. Like, share, and subscribe. Help this channel grow by becoming a member. That's the Coventry Faith Foundation YouTube channel. And subscribe. Those of you who have not subscribed, subscribe to the South African Debate Initiative. It's a fledgling channel. We want to get this information out to as wide a people as possible. As you can see, we truly try to engage in issues. And I think, in the United Kingdom, I think this is probably Brother Muhammad's channel, the Coventry Faith Foundation, is probably the only Dawah channel in the UK and indeed in Europe that has consistently engaged in this particular discussion. We've now had this partnership for about close to a year now, Brother Muhammad. It's a year's anniversary, our anniversary, and we've just had the anniversary since the beginning of this genocide. And we would like other people, so there's no copyright to this. You can clip, edit, take all our particular material, share it to as many people as follows. And of course, we would send you some of the material out there. There's a couple of emails in the chat. I'll ask Brother Muhammad to send them to me or WhatsApp it to me. And then I'll, of course, forward the information to the necessary brothers and, of course, the books and the material that they may require. So until then, Assalamu alaikum and greetings of peace. And we will continue this discussion, and we will have exciting guests. We hope to have an exciting guest this Monday evening from Washington, D.C.
Inshallah, jazakallah khair. Hassan, final salams from you to the audience, and please, I apologize for not letting you kind of interact with Anam for too long. So hopefully next time, inshallah, you'll be able to communicate with him for a longer period of time.
Inshallah. Just a reminder to all the people watching: pray for our brethren in Palestine, in Asham, in Lebanon. Right? Pray for our brothers and sisters all around the world. And just if you cannot, let's say, if you cannot become a member for whatever reason, at least like, share, and subscribe, and just leave a comment. Just leave one comment after the stream, all right? That helps the algorithm. That really does. Please do that. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
All right, yeah, thank you. Mike, we're just closing shop. You joined us slightly late. We've got a stream on Monday, so you're most welcome to jump onto that stream. And then hopefully I've got some great news for Wednesday. So that will be, thumbnail will be made for that pretty soon. So I do apologize, Mike. We have to end the show. But yeah, thank you guys once again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. أشهد أن